It's an honor to be here with the first Jewish president of the United States. And if he isn't, he should be.
So Mark Levin was joking there, right? Maybe not. Ladies and gentlemen, we got God. Correction. I got God. Correction. I knew. But I rolled the dice and it came up craps. So it is what it is. If you guys remember, way back 8-9 months ago, whatever it was, when I said that I finally had decided that I was going to cave and vote for Donald Trump because I could not bring myself to vote for Chase Oliver, I detailed out the justifications, the reasoning that I thought that it was the most prudent decision. And to be honest, I still think that it was. In fact, I do still think that it was. But I will say that in that episode, that very episode, I said the upside of Donald Trump is that he is promising to try and negotiate peace in Ukraine. The downside of Donald Trump is that there is a distinct possibility, given his donors, that he will deliver on a different war entirely. And that war would be with Iran. I'm not making it up. You can go back and watch me say it. I said it explicitly. We all knew this. This isn't exactly a surprise, but it is a disappointment nonetheless. The problem with Donald Trump is that he is always on both sides of every issue. If you are a non-interventionist, anti-war type of person, then Donald Trump gave you more than enough to believe that he might deliver on peace, given that there was no major wars that started under his first presidential term. So, with him promising to negotiate peace in the biggest proxy war in my lifetime, one that is undoubtedly existential when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war, I thought, screw it, it's worth a shot. He didn't start any wars in the first term. Maybe he can do this. Maybe he can deliver. He's not delivering, and in fact, he is escalating in a way that is extraordinarily dangerous. But on the flip side of that, here was our other option.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
So if you
And
have
that must
proof that
be.
Iran is building a nuclear weapon, will you take military action?
I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals.
So the answer was yes. Kamala Harris would have done the same damn thing. And given that we now know that, in fact, the bombing runs, which were just carried out yesterday, were actually game planned and war gamed and practiced under the Biden administration. So, as the saying goes, as Tom Woods has said, and I have done a little play off of the phrase, whoever you vote for, you get John McCain. That's the sad reality. And the really tragic reality for me has been that it feels a lot like whoever I vote for, I actually get the foreign policy preferences of Bibi Netanyahu, particularly when it comes to our Middle East insanity.
Israel didn't kick their regime change habit with Iraq or Libya or Syria, it seems. They need another fix. But Matt, this isn't a regime change war. It's about Iran's nuclear program. I wish that were true, but it's not. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene opined that maybe Netanyahu is so feisty about regime change in Iran because he was facing regime change in Israel.
It's not being reported enough that on Thursday, they held a vote in the Knesset, and it was only by 2 votes that Netanyahu won. If he had lost, they would have had another election in Israel, and the polling shows that he would lose if an election were to occur today. That vote happened last Thursday, and then Friday, Israel attacked Iran. That's why the bombs are falling, and it seems very political.
Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene says some zany things from time to time, but she is absolutely right about this. That in fact, Netanyahu was perilously close to being ousted from power. And because he faces corruption trials, there was a distinct possibility that he would go to jail once he's out of power. So what do you do as a political lifer that wants to stay in politics for life and stay in power to keep yourself not behind bars? You do whatever you have to. And this is the really tragic part about this, is that I believe strongly that my generation and younger is not very pro this. And by this, our greatest ally. We are not pro continuing to destroy our balance sheet, destroy our people, our population, to do the bidding of a country in the Middle East that doesn't do all that much for us in return. And in fairness, even if they did a lot for us, I still don't want to go to war for them. I want to not be involved with foreign nations. And this is, you could set Israel aside. If we had this type of relationship with any other nation, including Russia, I would oppose it. I don't want to be funding and arming a nation that destroys its neighbors, no matter what. I think that the reality is that thanks to the demographics shifting, the GOP and Israel politicians, the political class, knows that the clock is ticking. And the clock is not for the creation of an Iranian nuclear bomb, but rather, when will the American gravy train end? And the answer is soon, like within a decade, maybe two at most. Because after the young people actually become the old people, and then the young people become the young people, sorry if that didn't make sense, you're not going to have people that are continuing to vote in lockstep the way that they are today. And as a consequence of that, they have to move now. As we've already gone over a dozen times, the Wesley Clark 7. You had the 6 nations that got taken out. This is the 7th. They know that this is their opportunity. What did they do? They went around and they weakened Hezbollah in Lebanon. They weakened the Houthis in Yemen. They've weakened, obviously, Hamas in Gaza. And now all of these proxies to Iran, scare quote proxies, they are also independent nations that, anyway, setting that aside. Now they have the big target in their sights because everybody else is perceived to be weak. They know that they don't have any time left because the demographics are shifting and therefore their political support in America is diminishing very rapidly. And therefore you have to go now.
Terry carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime, Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
So we just blew your shit up and now it's time for peace? Do we think that's how geopolitics works? Really? If, say for instance, China were to say, we don't like the fact that, America has thousands of nuclear weapons, and they just started to bomb our nuclear facilities where we produce highly enriched uranium by which we create those weapons. Would we just go, all right, let's negotiate peace now? Or would we say, we're at war? Obviously. But if you actually look at the Con Inc. MAGA influencer class, it's completely the opposite. They're saying, Trump didn't start any wars. This is just dropping bombs. As if that's not like the prerequisite for a war. And by the way, there has to be an imminent threat by which the President of the United States is able to defend the country without it being a violation of the Constitution, because that's the only otherwise you have to go to Congress. But if it's an imminent threat, then you have to then report it to the Congress within 48 hours by which they can establish whether or not your actions have been constitutional or not. So they're not even doing that. We have jumped the shark so severely that we don't even pretend as if Congress is supposed to have war powers. It's just the president. This is how we do things now. Now, granted, it's been like this for fucking decades, so this is not anything new. However, this is new in the sense that there was no threat from Iran, and certainly not an imminent threat from Iran to America. You could argue that there's an imminent threat to Israel, because that would be true. In fact, they've been at war with one another for a few weeks now, and some would argue for a few years now. But that doesn't mean that we are at war, and it certainly doesn't mean that the President of the United States has the right to do what he did. So Miriam Adelson and her $100 million donation, it paid off. She got what she wanted. The Glenn Becks of the world who believe that you have to defend Israel lest you be cursed, they got what they wanted. The Ben Shapiros of the world got what they wanted. The Mark Levins of the world got what they wanted. The John McCains and Lindsey Grahams of the world got what they wanted. Who didn't get what they wanted? That would be probably half or more of Trump's voters, us, the American people. We didn't get what we wanted, and we certainly didn't get what we voted for, which was negotiations for peace, not bombing for peace. That is not peace through strength. That is war by deception. And let's go into the details of how this actually came to pass before I bring in this interview with Sam Tripoli and the entire crew. By the way, it's a banger, but because we did it yesterday, it was right before these bombs dropped, so I have to do this kind of intro where I explain my actual position, because at the time we were dealing with the hypothetical. Now it's fucking real. Now, obviously, this has been going on for decades, this entire fear-mongering nonsense about Iran getting nukes. I've been hearing it my entire adult life, and much longer than that, honestly, all the way back into my childhood. However, things really heated up in the past month, where it started to look like this was actually a potential war that was going to happen. And this is how they sold it to us, and this is how it was so unbelievably duplicitous and deceptive and disgusting. From June 9th, there was a phone call that was widely reported on between Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, in which Netanyahu, now keep in mind, Iran and Israel had already started to go to war. And in that phone call, it was established that Netanyahu and Israel could handle the nuclear threat within Iran on their own. They would not need America. They would not need American boots on the ground, nor would they need our missiles or bombers, nothing. They could handle it. To which I said, okay, handle it. It's your war. You pay the consequences. However, I also said, if you can't handle it, tough. Don't start a war that you can't finish. In fact, that's what you guys have been saying about Gaza for the past 2+ years. You just did it to yourselves, and now what happens? This is the key. It actually evolved in an even more disgusting and duplicitous fashion. 3 months ago, Tulsi Gabbard comes out and she says, during their annual threat assessment about Iranian nuclear program, they have not decided to restart their suspended nuclear program by which they could actually create a nuclear bomb, much less create the missile and the technology to create an ICBM by which America might actually be threatened. None of that exists. No one even claims that they have any mechanism to deliver it to us. That was never a claim, and it's still not a claim, which is obviously more evidence that this is not about defending us, but defending our greatest ally. So what happens? Tulsi, knowing that she is the only one in the administration that seems to be counter-signaling this, and knowing that they have already made the decision to go and bomb the nuclear sites on behalf of Israel, she tweets out a post yesterday where she corrects the record, in which she says that dishonest media is intentionally taking my testimony out of context and spreading fake news as a way to manufacture division. America has intelligence that Iran is at the point that it can produce a nuclear weapon within weeks to months if they decide to finalize the assembly. President Trump has been clear that can't happen, and I agree. Now, those words conflict directly with her testimony, which is what she said 3 months ago here.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program. In the past year, we've seen an erosion of a decades-long taboo in Iran on discussing nuclear weapons in public, likely emboldening nuclear weapons advocates within Iran's decision-making apparatus. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons.
So that was 2 days ago. The next day, the bombs get dropped. And what I found out today was that, in fact, the B-2 bombers had been in the air for 38 hours straight before those bombs got dropped. Apparently, they fly very slowly. But that's the reporting. They were refueled time and time again en route from America to Iran to drop those bombs. She sent out that tweet to correct her testimony, knowing full well that the bombs were about to be dropped. And everyone in the Trump administration had to be in lockstep, lest there be some sort of argument that perhaps we were being lied into yet another war. Now, you guys know this about me. Because of my position as a political commentator and podcaster and being a member of the Libertarian Party and running for the vice presidency, I have met a lot of these people. I have met Tulsi Gabbard. I liked Tulsi Gabbard. I still like her, I think, maybe, I don't know. This is not who she pretended to be. This is not who I thought she was. And unfortunately, it tells me that she's probably not the only one. So why did she modify her testimony? because of what I just described with constitutionality. Trump's lawyers can argue, yeah, he acted within his war powers, within his duties, because he has that right under the Constitution to prevent an imminent attack. Tulsi's testimony from 3 months ago with the IC report was that they have not decided to pursue a nuclear weapon, and they're not going to anytime imminently soon. In fact, even Bibi Netanyahu himself, in an interview, I think it was with Brett Baer just a couple of weeks ago, said they could be a year away. So even Netanyahu wasn't claiming that they could be weeks away. But because you already have a bombing campaign in the works, you have to modify that testimony to give the president of the United States cover by which he can then allege or argue that what he is doing is constitutionally protected. And personally, I don't think it was. And as of now, only Thomas Massie is trying to hold Trump to account on the GOP side.
What he promised us, which we would put America first. And I think there are still voices in this administration. You still got calmer heads that could prevail.
They were not persuasive in this case, clearly.
Somebody was persuasive. AIPAC is very persuasive. For instance, the Israeli lobby in Congress. If you look at my colleagues' feeds now, they all look the same. They're all tweeting the same message that we've got to support Israel and we've got to do this.
Thomas Massie 2028. Thomas Massie or bust. That's where I'm at. I feel as if there really is no electoral recourse here. That whoever you vote for, you get John McCain and or you get Bibi Netanyahu. Therefore, I'm all in. I'm all in on Thomas Massie. If he runs, I will quit everything. He wants me to quit this show, I'll quit it. Let's get on the campaign trail, Thomas. We need you, buddy. We're going to end up in World War III. We're going to end up defaulting on our national debt. We're going to end up in catastrophe if we don't get someone heroic like you in there. And even if you were to get in there, you would probably be undermined in ways that are unspeakably grave. Given all of the pushback that Trump received, my God, I can't imagine what they would do with the Thomas Massie. However, I think that's our only hope. And if you think I'm overstating it, listen to Tammy Bruce, the State Department spokesman under Donald Trump.
And in the greatest country on earth, next to Israel, it's an honor.
Literally, Israel first. You voted for MAGA or America first, and you got, if you're lucky, America second. Now, sure, she may have been saying that in jest, whatever. It's still fucking weird. Can we all acknowledge that? Is that okay? Can we say it's weird when American politicians, State Department representatives say that America is the second best country in the world behind Israel? Is that not just super alarming? If they said that about any other country, would you not be like, what the fuck? What are you saying? Who do you work for? Are these not fair questions? My goodness. What has become of us?
So just riddle me this then. If we just went in because there was this uprising in 2011 and because we were worried that Gaddafi was about to go genocidal, why is it then that I got 4-star General Wesley Clark, Supreme Commander of the NATO forces? Why is it that he told me that he saw the plans in 2001 to overthrow Gaddafi and that this was part of a strategy to overthrow 7 governments in 5 years, and all of them except one have been done at this point?
Right after 9/11, about 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for the generals. Called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "We were too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that. This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan."
And finishing off, Iran. This has been the plan for over 20 years. Now, Wesley Clark got it wrong. At least the planners got it wrong in that they thought that they could pull off these conquests in 5 years. It took them 25. And it's not done yet, but it looks as if the 7th domino is set to fall imminently. And if anybody has any doubts as to whether or not this is our foreign policy and this is in the American people's interests, just consider all of those countries on the list. Just consider that 3/4 of them happen to be part of the Greater Israel Project. Does that seem coincidental to you? It seems a little, I don't know. It seems obvious. And I'm tired of pretending that it's not obvious. And I'm tired of biting my tongue about it. I'm tired of pretending as if I can't see what's happening. My country is being bankrupted for another. If that doesn't upset you, what are you doing with your life? Do you care about your children less than you care about Israel? If so, why? Glenn Beck is brought to fucking tears talking about Israel on the regular. This is unhealthy shit, ladies and gentlemen. This is weird behavior, and I will not go along with it any longer. I am interested in creating a better future, at least a country comparable to the one I grew up in, by which my own children might live and thrive. And that doesn't seem to be a possibility as long as I continue to be robbed blind and bled dry to fight wars that are not defensive in nature, that are in fact wars of aggression that have been game planned for decades for, or to the benefit of, a nation that is not my own. It's fucked up. We should stop doing it. And if you think it's fucked up, you should say so. I don't think that's asking too much. Now, as you guys know, Trump was ushered into his second presidential term on the very disparate belief systems and the odd alliances of the MAGA Libertarian Alliance. Best I can tell, he's not really delivering to MAGA. RFK Jr. has done some good things, and I'm still in a wait-and-see mode on that. Certainly doesn't look as if we're going to get COVID justice, so you can just fucking write that off. As for libertarian promises, sure, Ross Ulbricht got freed. I met him at Freedom Fest last week. Fucking thrilling experience to have played any role in freeing him, even though I didn't really play a role, but like the libertarians did. It's amazing. However, beyond that, $1 trillion Pentagon budget, what else? Largest spending bill. I don't know if it's in history, but it's right up there. We're going to continue to blow out the national debt, and we haven't got peace in Ukraine, and we haven't got peace in Gaza, and we are now at war with Iran. So fail, major fail. And that, for most libertarians, is a very high priority item. Now, he did secure the border. He's not deporting any more people than really, I think, Obama did. So that's nothing dramatic there, but he did secure the border, so I'll give him credit for that. But on net, he's not doing so hot. And I think that at this point, particularly with what I think is a clear illegal war of aggression, it is fair to say that Donald Trump has failed in his second presidential term. Now, that's not to say that this can't get better, that it can't improve. And obviously, I hope that it does. I'm not going to be rooting against him. However, I think that if this goes as bad as I think it might, consider this for a second. You had peace negotiations that had been going on for months between Iran and the U.S. State Department. It looked as if there was a chance for peace. And obviously, I and millions of others across the world, billions probably, were hoping that peace could be found. In the meantime, the Israelis were planning a sneak attack by which they unleashed drones from I think it was a vehicle inside of Iran proper. They did so to take out the top leadership, including the people that they were negotiating a reduction in the path by which they might attain a nuclear weapon. They took out all of their partners for peace, which is ironic because it is often, if not always, the Israelis that are saying in Palestine they had no partner for peace. It's hard to have a partner for peace when you fucking kill them in the middle of the night along with their family, which is what they did. So yeah, there was no fucking intent or interest in peace. And let's stop pretending that there was. This is a war of aggression, clearly. Now, that doesn't mean that I like Iran. That doesn't mean that I like the supreme leader. I don't. And certainly, they don't treat their people very well. Fine. Not my fucking business. I don't care. Could I make it any more explicit? Don't care. Don't live there. I wish them well, but I don't give a fuck. Just I don't care what happens to the women in Afghanistan. I hope that they have good lives, but I'm not going to do anything to help them. And I'm certainly not going to allow my government to bomb them into being modern, as if that ever has worked ever. So the question is, what happens to the alliance? And I'll tell you what I think. I think Maha is going to hang on and go with whoever gives them the most of what they want. Those that are really interested in ending wars will probably shift more towards the libertarian side of things. I think that the libertarians who had got on the MAGA bandwagon to try and seek peace against Russia because we didn't want to end up in World War III. Now we're facing the potential for World War III thanks to this bullshit in Iran. Therefore, we'll probably end up back in the libertarian camp. I think that the rest will probably end up in the America First camp and whoever fills that void. And I don't know who it will be at this point, but those that are genuine nationalist, non-interventionists. Trump ain't that. Crystal clear. That's the divide. Trump, you had all of the opportunity in the world to go down as easily the greatest president in my lifetime and arguably one of the greatest Americans ever. I know. Crazy, right? And you fucking blew it. You blew it for a country that isn't your own and a country that doesn't give a fuck about you, I might add. And in the process, you stabbed in the back 70 plus million Americans that love you. Now, I wasn't one of them. I look at all politicians as basically a means to an end. However, there has rarely, if ever, Obama's the closest thing I can think of, has there been a politician in America that is beloved the way Donald Trump is? And he just spit in their faces and he did the bidding of his donors instead. It's disreputable, it's disgusting, and I don't respect it or approve of it. So I had to say something. All right, quite the rant. Let's get into the very deep dive conversation with Sam Tripoli, Jose Galison, and Austin Picard. I actually exit out an hour in to bring in Josie the Redheaded Libertarian so she could talk with them for about a half an hour or two. It's a great conversation. Obviously, this was recorded just before these bombs got dropped. There is a lot of discussion over the hypothetical as to what this might mean, but it's actually, I think it'll be very interesting to watch, given that you could see if we got our predictions right as to whether or not it was going to happen. And it did, tragically. And for those that want to know why I left Tower Gang, I'm going to give a 5-minute outro after this interview because I know most of you don't care, but I'll give you my 2 cents. Before we start the interview with everybody else, let's make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, share this around. As you can tell, I put a ton of effort, money, and time into getting a new studio. I moved up here. If you want to help a brother out, easiest way to do it, pick up your phone, pick up everyone you know's phone, subscribe, go type in Liberty Lockdown and subscribe. If you want to support the work, at Liberty Lockpod on X, subscribe there and I'll follow you back, or libertylockdown.locals.com. These are all ways that you can support the show. It's very cheap, just a couple bucks a month, really does help. And if you can't do, that's okay. I still love you. But if you could share the show around, that's the easiest way to do it, or leave 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to help with the algorithm. Let's get into the interview with the Sam Tripoli and crew. Welcome to Liberty Lockdown. This is, yeah, I know, it's weird. Clint Russell, Jose Galison in the building. We've got Austin. What's your last name? Picard?
Picard.
Is it really?
Yes.
I don't believe you.
No, Austin Wade Picard, I swear.
All right. And then we've got Sam motherfucking Tripoli in the building.
Yes, that's my middle name,
What's up,
motherfucker.
Yeah.
I have a great four-way story sometime. I'll tell you. Yeah.
Oh, dude. Don't.
It's a really funny story because it was when I was first starting stand-up, and I used to have these 2 chicks I would hook up with in Vegas. So I brought my British friend over to from LA to Vegas to go do stand-up, and he's very posh, good guy named Elliot. And these 2 chicks wanted to have a 4-way with us, and I got 6 inches on his tippy toes, right?
Oh my god!
So I'm super. I go, hey, dude, you don't have a monster hog, do you? He goes, no. I don't have. Are you sure? I don't want to. So we show up, and Godzilla comes out of his fucking pants, and it's fucking. I mean, it is. I'm like, what the. Dude. So I'm just sitting in the corner like a sad ride at Disneyland and nobody wants to go on.
Oh, man.
So that's my fun story.
Dude, that sucks. I feel bad for you.
Yeah, but once you have kids, it's like, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, whatever. my junk works.
Well, that was a much funner way to start this than I had imagined, but I did want to talk to you guys about the big story of the day, and that is Iran. I am obviously, I'm very jaded, and I think rightfully so, as a consequence of the WMD lies, the sarin gas lies in Syria, the countless lies that we've heard from the Russia-Ukraine war. I think everybody at this table kind of sees war propaganda the same way. But this, to me, comes across as the exact same thing.
Yes.
That Iran had, that they suspended in 2003, what's described as a latent nuclear deterrent program. As of late, they've spun up their centrifuges or whatever to 60% purity so that they're able to basically use it as a negotiating chip, which has now been turned into a, I guess, talking point by which the U.S. may get involved in this war. So what are you guys feeling?
I think we're going to war.
Poor
Unfortunately, that's the
Austin.
way it seems. I mean, it does seem though we're having. I mean, I don't know if it's we. It's really hard to. I mean, I do a daily show, so I cover the minutia of all this daily, and it's you see him waffling back and forth. And I gotta say, I felt like we were going to be at war damn near almost a week ago.
I thought so too.
And so I keep saying, beware false flags, beware false flags. Like we got this 2-week period. I've kind of had this joking bit where I'm like, it's like Trump being like, where's the false flag? It was supposed to be like a week ago. Where are we at? What's going on? Like that's what it feels like. We're just waiting for it. So I mean, between the constant pushing propaganda of fuck this war, and also just like I think we just need to keep pushing, and I mean, just putting gum in this works. I think with the current paradigm of the propaganda that we have essentially fighting back against this, I don't see any sort of boots on the ground thing happening within the next few years. Like I feel like any sort of genuine mobilization that feels anything organic is just like not going to happen. So I don't know. I feel like they almost need to go hard and fast or not at all. I've been genuinely concerned that we might get into nuke territory. And I feel like there have been little subtle hints thrown out throughout that have made
Dude,
me
for sure.
are we about to, because I can just see that Hollywood narrative already play out. Look at this this persecuted nation that in secret, there's this dastardly entity trying to destroy them, and they in secret built up their nuke program, and then they announced the world. The Lions of Judea come out as a nuclear power, announcing the world.
Operation Rising Lion.
Exactly.
Oh my
Like
God.
I can see it playing out, and it's like, don't let them have it. Make it inorganic at the very least. It might happen, but at least make them eat that shit.
Yeah, 100%. And what I actually personally think is that at every turn, the name of the game is manufacturing consent. That's you mentioned Ukraine, right? Ghost of Kiev.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean,
Snake Island, all that.
yeah. And then you go back to babies in incubators, right? I mean, like how many different examples do we need before we, at least the general public would, at the very least, you would think, be maybe skeptical. You would hope, but seemingly what typically happens. And by the way, did you see the 5.2 earthquake in Iran on the Richter scale? I had someone describe that as one of the nuclear tests underground causing this. Is that propaganda? Yeah, absolutely, in my mind, and especially when you're considering what just happened with Tulsi Gabbard, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Well, let me add something real quick.
Okay.
You're from California, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. A 5 earthquake is fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Like you sleep through a 5.2. But on top of that, do you think that they would test a nuke underneath Tehran?
No sense.
Like the actual, like the population center of the nation? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
See, I
dude.
think that's what their big problem is right now. The group is too sad. The population that cares, which most of it doesn't, because they're just distracted. Whenever there's a high impact event, I like to go to Instagram and see how the Instagram models are taking it. And it's always the exact same way, ass up, face down. It does not matter what is happening. They're in their mode all the time. So most people are distracted, but the people that are paying attention seem to be the paid for shills, the Zionists versus everybody else that's paying attention. And I think they are screwed. I think you're looking at the first war that they want to make happen that they could not manufacture consent for. Every other one they've been able to rally the country behind under this false narrative and allow us to just go murk brown people that did nothing to anybody. But we're so savvy now.
Right.
And I don't know what the role in that is with Twitter. I think Twitter is the biggest part of this, is that it's just allowed this open dialogue to happen that never was allowed before. Like every time Duckbill Laura Loomer tweets something, I go, let's go see how it's going in the tweets. And she's getting her lady dick kicked in every tweet she puts out.
Yeah.
So it's not working. None of it's working. And, all of these Zio retards are all tweeting about Iran's going to have a false flag attack in America. And you do simple math. It goes, by the most part, it seems that Iran doesn't want a war. Iran just wants trade. That's really all they want. They want sanctions off and they want trade. And if you go back to the Iranian hostage situation, if you really study that was about Chase Bank gave loans to the Shah, not in the lawful way that the Iranian government says they take loans, which is approval of their Congress. They have to approve the loan before they take it. The Shah was just taking the loans and pocketing the money. And then when Mogaddesh, or I think that's how you pronounce it, but when he got in, he looked over the books and he goes, these loans didn't go through Congress. We're not going to pay them back. And already had a shitty rating with the Fed at that time. So if these loans weren't paid off, their credit rating with the Federal Reserve was going to be disastrous.
Which
so
is the end of a commercial bank.
Which is the end. So Henry Kissinger and a Rockefeller, they got the Shah and they paraded him around the United States to give indications to Iran that they were going to reinstall him. And Iran was like, "Don't fucking do it, dude. We'll take your embassy over." And they did. Nobody knows this. They took it for 3 days just to show them that they could do it. And then they let the hostages go and they went back. And they're like, they kept parading him around. So that's where it came from, because they knew they could manipulate Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
So this is the first time manipulate Jimmy Carter into basically freezing Iran's assets.
Gotcha.
So this is the first time I've ever seen where there is a war that the war pigs want, that there's no consensus for outside this small group of people that want it. I personally think, there's a lot of people talking about how a lot of these bombs look like AI, which I'm not saying they're not. I don't know. I haven't studied it enough, but I 100% believe that Israel is fucked anyway. I don't see
Well, have you seen they're censoring their people with the missile strikes? They're not allowing them to video. They can get 20 to 30 months in prison. There's no fines attached to it. It's literal imprisonment, no fine. I think it's 20 to 30 months for videoing the missiles coming in.
Because the first 48 hours of Iran's retaliation was being put on the internet, and it was like, oh, like Iran's for real. Like this is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. This is a real fucking country with a real fucking military, and y'all just started a war with them.
Yeah.
And just to double down on Sam's point about how you don't think Iran wanted the war, I know they didn't want this war because their allies, the Palestinians, like they have obviously supported Hamas for a long time. They had every opportunity to engage in that war if they wanted to, given all of the fucking death and destruction that was being wrought upon the Palestinians. They never did. Also, they took out the leader of Hamas, or the leader of, was it Hezbollah? Yeah, Hezbollah.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you will pay. And then what did they do? They gave them, I think it was 24 or 48 hours notice, and they send these fucking, everything they sent at them was shot down because they gave them notice. It was basically like a clear face-saving maneuver. We can't look as if we're just totally afraid of you, but we're going to make sure that we don't actually damage you so that you don't end up, escalating further.
Right.
So they have taken every opportunity to de-escalate, to avoid a direct war with Israel. And what did Israel do in return during the negotiation process for peace with the West, with America? They fucking take a overnight drone attack, and they wipe out like half of their top, military establishment.
It's very crazy, and you kind of get into so when everyone says Iran supports Hamas, I'm not saying that's not true at all. I just don't know what's going on with that, because Israel's come out and said that basically they busted Netanyahu funding and arming ISIS to come into Gaza and pretend they're Hamas. And so the question goes, when did that start?
Right.
Did that just start, or was that what happened on October 7th?
Right.
And it was really these ISIS fighters that pulled this bullshit maneuver that we all know was a false flag event.
Yeah, well, Dave Smith was debating Constant Kissin on
Piers
Morgan yesterday,
beautiful.
and he made that exact point. He's like, all right, so what's your definition of a proxy? And they, Piers and Kissin, they both go, well, you're funding a military that does stuff on your behalf. And he's like, all right, so is Hamas a proxy of Israel?
Wow.
It's like, oops, you better have a little bit better definition of a proxy if that's the case, because you're right. They funded it it was through Qatar, but same difference.
These are unimpressive people. You could tell too, if anyone has watched that debate, you can tell that the point didn't even enter. He didn't even compute the point. It's like what we were pointing out is your logic is nonsensical, and you just don't even.
They have a blind spot the size of a
they don't
black
have basic
hole
logic skills
when it comes to this. They just have a blind spot. They can't compute it. It's generational trauma and programming. But I don't even get mad at my Jewish friends that have no ability to call out Israel, because it's really just it's baked into their program. They can't do it. Since they were kids, their grandmas, their moms have been just annihilating any common sense when it comes to this. And again, we're getting into what is Israel. And, that's when it comes into biblical talk. And the truth of the matter is that Israel is not a nation. It is not a geographic area. It's an ideology of accepting Jesus as your savior. That is it. And then if you study the Talmud, they think Jesus is in hell, rotting, burning in excrement. So it doesn't add up. None of it adds up.
No.
But they're so smart, these masters of mankind. They've been working on this for hundreds of years. This isn't like an overnight or even like a couple decades thing. This has literally been in the works forever because they know, Christians who favor or who support Israel will be blessing. That's not the exact quote, but that's along the lines of it.
Right.
So they know that's out there. So they'll just call this country Israel, and then they get the Schofield Bible going, and now you round up all of these Christians to basically support this. I hate to say it, and I probably wouldn't have said it on October 6th, but this parasite in the middle of this area that has, like right now we're being told, by Ted Cruz that this is the most dangerous country for America. They could while our allies bombing, Israel, Iran hasn't invaded anywhere in 250 years outside of this throwing these missiles. So you're talking about a country that hasn't invaded anywhere in 250 years, and you're saying that the allies are the ones currently bombing 5 people while we've toppled almost 7 governments.
Yep. And in the past 24 months, Israel's attacked 6 countries.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely it's been a 5+ front while committing a genocide and starting a new war of aggression that could ultimately trip off, we all, I guess, jokingly, but semi-seriously, World War III. We have Chinese warships, I think, in the Hormuz Strait along with ours and stuff right now. Like this all can pop off.
This morning, there was reports that our B-2 bombers have been deployed too. And then their transponders got shut off. Like this is all
they're at Diego Garcia too. So they're like they're right there anyways.
And then this is all fog of war shit. So I don't want anybody to panic.
Yeah.
I've been panicked periodically throughout this fog of war as I'm trying to analyze and get a handle on these things. And it really looked like you were saying earlier, it looked like a week ago we were going to war. Like it looked like it was fucking coming. And now it looks as if basically they're trying to kind of craft or like mold the American people's mind that we get kind of afraid of a boots on the ground war. And then they go, all right, well, then we're just going to drop bunker busters. So like, this isn't a war, right? But the reality is it'll take a miracle for Iran not to respond by striking American soldiers at our bases in the Middle East. If they do that, if we lose American troops, as well as I do, Trump will immediately enter war.
Absolutely.
For real.
Well, and then it's also like they have that one battleship going over there that's been decommissioned
for over a year. The USS.
And they're like, yeah, we're just going to send this one over there. Yeah. And everyone's like, it's going to be a false flag. And then the mainstream media is like, they're not using it for a false flag, which is telling me you're using it for a false flag. The fact that you acknowledge what we were talking about is just you trying to counter
the Jordan Peterson thing. I brought that up on my morning show recently. Just like this cyclical thing where it's like, now this is how ridiculous the propaganda game is. They're trying to put out this propaganda campaign for whatever they're trying to do. We've gone to such a point where now we have Jordan Peterson putting out things from New York Post saying, essentially just shitty articles about bots. And like, I went through in my audience, there's nothing that like
it's
drew
so
a conclusive
crazy
line.
how dumb they look.
It's completely reading into bots. And like, these are all stuff I've seen happen for long. We've had all these bots that follow us. And I'm like, this is going to backfire at some point. This is totally some sort of play, whether it's to bog down or algo, or it's to do this.
But it's worse than that though, because the people that are actually running that, I forget, it's like NICA or something like that. But they have former like top dudes from the ADL that are responsible for that analysis.
Of course.
And then you have Jordan Peterson, who's this guy going around defending Christianity, despite the fact that he's not willing to espouse his faith at all. But he's the one that's pushing this shit. I honestly believe this, and this is probably going to be controversial. I think that he's on the take. I think he's actually getting paid to propaganda.
I don't think that's controversial at all.
Well, it's not controversial at this table.
No,
I think it might be controversial.
I think it's right.
Soul to soul.
So I just want to also get into this, and I don't know, Austin, if you've ever talked about this, but the theory of nukes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm not saying they don't have big bombs that go boom, but I mean, whatever they showed us in World War II was not a nuke. It wasn't real. There's nothing ever that has led me to think it is real, because everything from the dropping of the bomb, that people moving right back into Hiroshima, Chernobyl, it's like, it's so dangerous. You have to wear a hazmat suit as deer walk by.
As we're bombing the fuck out of nuclear facilities.
Yeah, but it just makes no sense whatsoever. And it's just,
I'm just telling you the bombs aren't real. I'm not saying that the nukes aren't real. They just aren't. There's nothing that ever said that there is an actual nuke. Now, does that mean they don't have a really big bomb that could do some
they have
nasty
huge
shit?
bombs.
I'm not, or they came up with a real version of it, but from that what World War II, they firebombed all Hiroshima, and then they said they dropped the nuke. People are already gone, and then they ran in, and then they moved right back in. Like they should be mutants by now.
Here's the one pushback I'll give you on that. I think that it's more likely, in my opinion, that nuclear radiation, the half-life of it is much shorter than what they said, because I think when they were
Like how long do you, because they say it's thousands of years.
no, I know
dude.
that, and what I'm saying is when they were trying to make people very fearful of nuclear weapons, and this makes perfect sense from a propaganda standpoint, that you would want it to be believed as the only nation that had functioning nuclear weapons, that if we drop these on you, it's not just the people dying now, it's that your country becomes uninhabitable for thousands of years. So don't fuck with us. So I think that was the lie. That's always
So
been
what do
my
you
read of
think?
it.
It's like a year, because they moved right back in.
Yeah, I think that it's probably still somewhat dangerous, within probably 5 years, but like it just decreases exponentially year after year. So I would say, like, after Chernobyl, for instance, I would definitely recommend you not fucking be there. But like 2 years afterwards, nature starts to come back,
definitely
trees start to
possible.
grow. I mean, that's been my read of it. I have no way to back this up. This is like
Goodbye.
bro science.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the clip of them testing nuclear bombs, those are all models.
Look out Mountain Laboratory, man. That's
Yeah.
where all of that was filmed,
Wasn't
essentially,
it
right? It's like-
Kemper's fucking dad or grandpa that was working and had some
Oh, dude.
super top secret thing that he was literally working on
100%.
those explosions. Like this is like, if you understand what like a cult, for things to be occulted is, this is like fake. Nukes being real would be like the ultimate occulted thing, because it is kind of, if you look at how it is kind of like super secret, oh, you can't have it, but we can. And so it's like, it is kind of the perfect area for someone to pull some shenanigans or something. So
I'll give you another tidbit as to why I believe nukes are real. If I know this is weird that I have to argue this, but at this table I do.
Your government loves you, like what? yeah. Let's go there, Clint. I'm like, I'm not even saying I actually believe him. I just give.
I definitely don't believe that, but I think that we would have taken out North Korea if nukes were fake.
You don't think?
But
that North-
Iran can't get a nuclear bomb.
Yeah,
Sorry
it's a
to
good
cut
point.
you
You're
off,
okay, buddy.
Oh, no, Iran can't get a bomb, but North Korea can.
Yeah, it's absurd.
It's so, and everybody hates Q shit, and I totally agree with that. But I think the Q shit was them telling us everything because they were going to reset I think the Q was two things. The elites telling us everything because they were just going, it was Operation Trust because they wanted to corral all these like super paranoid
That
people.
worked.
And it was an attempt to beta test AI. If AI could connect
Interesting.
with us. And
Oh shit! You think that Q is an AI?
I think
program?
I think the way it's written is totally AI.
Dude, that's interesting.
You
I've
know,
never
and they're
considered
like,
that.
will this
sense.
will
Yeah, it
this
does.
manipulate
heard that
them in this
Well,
way?
Mission accomplished. Then.
Yeah, 100%. But
'Cause
but it's
fucked,
all
it
real.
fucked up like family members of mine.
Yeah, but what is in there is real. That's Operation Trust. They've been doing it for thousands of years. They tell you what's going on so that you get the people like in this room that are gullible enough to fall. But all you go through it all. Now, what the people like Whitney Webb and all them will tell you is that all that information was already out. It's like when they're like, we're going to release Epstein files. And I'm like, we already know. We just want to know, are we right or totally right? That's the only
Exactly.
reason we want them released. We already know who's there. The only question is who's the MW, which is it Michelle Wolf, the comedian, because she got all this stuff right after. She got her own Netflix show.
Interesting.
She's doing the press, the presidential.
Wait, MW was something from Q?
Yeah, well, no, from the Epstein list when it was when they
flight
list
log or
over there. There's
something?
a MW. Now there's also a Michael Wolf who's very high up at the CDC. So it could be one or the two of those.
Yeah.
But that's all that was. But the point of that whole thing is that in Q it basically says that North Korea is just a CIA outpost
Exactly, that's what I was going to
used to just whenever they need to rattle or whatever that
No
is.
shit.
Even crazier
Wow.
than that, Clinton himself sold the Whitewater reactor to Kim Jong Un's father, right? Kim Jong Il, which is super crazy. That, and by the way, that the deals that they had made with essentially the Russia at the time, right? Which, as far as like these labor camps that they were setting up, I remember-
Uranium One deal. Is that what you're talking
yeah,
about?
it's fascinating stuff because
The Clintons made crazy bank off that I heard.
exactly.
Yeah.
And and for me personally, like knowing how compromised and corrupt the Clintons are and the network around them, right? Which very much in my mind, I think I don't see Trump outside of that network in any way. I mean, he's legitimately on a golf course grabbing
He's
Bill Clinton
Adnan
by the dick.
Khashoggi's
You know what I
yacht.
mean? Yeah. No, he bought Adnan Khashoggi's yacht, which was already entirely
Wait, Bill
outfitted.
Clinton did?
No,
Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump bought Adnan
Dude,
Yeah,
Khashoggi's
the
yacht.
It's
blackmail
crazier
yacht,
than that.
known for
Yeah.
blackmail.
Entirely rigged with audiovisual blackmail when he bought
Was it Melania supposedly provided to him by
I have a joke about it. She was a high end escort.
Yeah, that's what they say.
They're all
she sure looks
sexually
it.
compromised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is sexually compromised.
Was it
They're-
Elon's brother was what doing jujitsu or some nonsense? Supposedly is what they said with Ghislaine or some craziness. Like
Oh my
there's like
God.
receipts for that. There's like a
Hitler
yeah.
was a gay hooker. They
don't start to
That's
go
what it
there.
is.
Yeah.
I'm excited to go there.
he was a gay hooker.
We're
and
going.
that-
I swear
that
to
is
God.
consistent with, like Kurt Metzger talking about the tapes of Ronald Reagan getting pegged
Right.
and how that got basically Larry Flint shot.
Oh my God. And you
Wait,
know what?
what?
And that
Yeah,
brings
you
in-
never heard that.
The
You
owner
want to
of
see a great
Hustler?
video?
Yes, yes.
Go
Feds
watch.
go deep, homeboy.
Go watch Control Alt History. Andy Hunt is his name.
Okay.
Watch his video on it. He has all of the articles that came out about. So
That's
this the Vicky Morrison, I believe was her name.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the greatest example of how if you're a gorgeous woman, like you can jump insane economic levels.
Oh yeah.
Like you can go from because she was
Dude,
like
if you're an attractive woman and you're not a millionaire, I
You
don't
made
know.
bad
Like,
decisions.
no, well, or you're like the most morally pure person on the planet.
or you made bad
Yeah.
decisions.
Or you made bad decisions.
You know, I mean, like when you drive in LA and you drive by like a hot chick at the bus, you're like, man, you're really stubborn.
Yeah.
You're
You could
just a stubborn person.
You should have an easy life.
Yeah, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be this way. But if you study all that stuff, like that's why Reagan was there.
Yeah.
Super
No, but- and
compromised.
Reagan. Yeah.
He was blackmailed by a guy named Bloomberg who started the Bloomington
Bloomington,
stores.
yeah.
Yeah, he's directly compromised and by the kosher mafia as well. He had a direct connection to Roy Cohn, his own wife, even Nancy Reagan. Right, that the whole reason that she was running the HIV, promo from the White House was essentially one reason was they were attempting to get like a state of the art advanced medical attention
She was
to
fooling around
Roy
Mr. T,
Cohn,
dude.
it's in order to save him from dying of AIDS. Which
Oh
I
my
thought was
God, I
insane.
didn't know that.
Yes, and it all connects back to this kosher mafia connection that I forget it was what's the name of that talent agency or whatever it was that was you remember, Jose. We talked about it multiple times on Already Dead, but
Yeah.
either way, you guys would all remember as soon as I mentioned it. But fuck it. Anyway, what matters most is clearly this was a sort of cutout, right? In my mind, a human compromise cutout. And what people don't realize, right, is that Larry Flint as well, as far as being connected to all
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah, you told us that the other day on
Right.
whatever this is.
Okay, he's obviously a pornographer, but we're talking about the Cotton Club murders as well. So we have like Roy Radin, right, who's a producer in this the Cotton Club movie that they were attempting to produce at the time. He's murdered in an occult ritual style murder by a man named William Manson. Manson 2 is what they called him, and he's directly affiliated with. So he was a bodyguard of Larry Flint's, and he was a hitman who killed Roy Radin. And apparently also at Larry Flint's mansion, they were having a party, right? And just like with Roy Radin on the East Coast in upstate New York, he was having essentially these human compromise parties, just like Roy Cohn, where they were
Hugh
procuring
Hefner,
children.
too, though.
Yeah,
That was his.
Oh,
absolutely.
Cohn, Trump's mentor. Just remember
Exactly. Where's my Roy Cohn? Says Donald Trump.
Right.
And that in no way, man. Like you don't get involved in politics, or you don't get involved at that influential level where your name means so much. And I think that when you realize, like, it wasn't Murdoch. But either way, there's a direct connection to the money manager of the Rothschilds at the time, right? When Trump was essentially bankrupt, and he was becoming
Yep.
involved in Casino Royals International, I believe, Royal Casino International, I believe is what it's called. And basically, what had happened there is that what they had said is that they bailed him out in order. They said he's more valuable to us
Yep.
alive than dead,
Yep.
and that was meaning the
It's the
brand
Elvis
name.
factor.
Yeah.
people like he's magnet. He's like people are attracted to him, and not everybody has that. I call it the Elvis factor. Johnny calls it the Hitler factor. It's just they're just connect to people. So yeah, all this. And the interesting thing about Roy Cohen dying of AIDS is that whenever they run these psyops, they don't care if they take out their own.
I think what's driving me crazy is that we still don't have, like, there's no movement at all at this point, like zero movement. And as you can see by the sign, I take this very fucking seriously. Liberty lockdown. I can't fucking believe that people are just moving on. Like, I can't believe that people don't care.
Dude, Karen Bass burned down LA twice, and nobody's calling for her head.
Dude.
Like, if we were a sports team, we would say, fire this coach.
Of course.
I don't care what happens on his watch. It's on his watch. It's on her
Gavin
watch.
Newsom was fucking, there was a recall election in 21 and he won it. And it's like, you just destroyed the most incredible state maybe in American history. And it's like, no one cares. The Californians don't care.
Because they're emotionally captured. It does not matter to them.
Well, I want to ask you guys, this is kind of a tangent, but this has been like a retort I've gotten a lot lately, is that people think that I make it sound as if Israel, like, we're the tail and Israel's the dog. Like, I'm not even confident for sure that that's the case. I think sometimes we're the tail and sometimes they're the tail.
No, I think neither of us are the tail.
Okay, well, we'll go there in a second because that's interesting. But
yeah, okay.
No. Actually, fuck it. Go. You tell me what.
I think the British
Babylonian
Empire,
bankers.
I think the British Empire is above all of us. I think the British Empire,
So you think
the
this
Bank
is,
of England,
MI6 is actually the dog?
Well, MI6, CIA, Mossad, they're all the same thing. They just have different names. The
Okay.
storefront,
Exactly.
you know, they're
Black
all the same
Nobility,
thing.
The Pilgrim Society, Chatham House, even if you want to think Committee of 300, Club of Rome, these very much influential organizations.
I'd
that
say
have-
Switzerland
100%.
is probably where it's all at.
I think
and that's where they run it all out of.
major tool.
I'm neutral. I'm a neutral country. Like, you can just do that. Like, oh, well, we're just neutral. No, you're the head of the banking couple.
Yeah.
You're where, like, the Club of Rome is, the WEF, the Collider is, you know, Davos. It's all out of Switzerland.
Yeah, they're like, we don't ever go to war. We just fund all the wars.
They're like, oh, dude, you can't attack Switzerland because it has so many mountains. You're like, nobody attacks Switzerland because they're funding everything.
Exactly.
It is where the one institute that nobody talks about, which is the Bank of International Settlement. That is the head of the snake.
Isn't that also
And
where they
that's-
have like the most like lax, like some of the most relaxed like child abuse laws essentially.
I know the Netherlands and
yeah.
definitely
So that
the-
area, yeah.
Dude, age of consent laws. I mean, extremely.
That's the head of the snake, and that's also where they have the most lax stuff. That's also where you see some of the most insane stuff. Like you follow, like read Eye of the Chicken Hawk from Simon Dovey. He's
Oh,
Hot
man.
Star on Twitter for those.
People always want me to,
Yeah.
my friends are like, you should just read on the plane. I'm like, the books I read, you can't just read them out in public. You can't hang out with a book that says pink Nazis on it.
Right. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I was reading Mein Kampf on the public bus and I got my ass kicked. So
Oh, really?
no,
That's so fucking.
I would never ride a public bus.
Right. That's so fucking funny. But I honestly do think that Israel has very much been a tool of implementing this globalist framework, I think. And that is this what David Icke, many people have, of course, you can disagree with them on many different things, but I overwhelmingly I appreciate a lot of what he's done, and especially in terms of the tiptoe toward totalitarianism, right? This dystopian agenda that is very clearly, being
technocracy.
pursued at every level. Yes, the
Yeah.
pivot toward technocracy is clearly in the works in this very moment.
we're
We're
in it.
witnessing it in real
We're deep in
time.
it.
Peter Thiel and all of his acolytes standing tall behind Trump. That's been very.
What are your thoughts on my belief that those drones in New Jersey were a beta test run to see if people were okay with robots in the sky?
Oh, wow. Man, that makes a lot of sense to me because in the UK already they're having like Uber Eats is essentially a drone that is flying to your apartment and dropping off your shit.
Yeah, they
And-
started that with Amazon a while back too.
Yeah.
They were doing test runs of it.
So imagine, well, especially whenever they were kind of like, you remember that engagement with Mexico where they were talking about, Elon's talking about bombing and drone striking Mexico, right? And then talking about Mexican citizens, right? Like cartel members, right? Essentially being priority targets, even within the domestic U.S. And you're considering drone strikes in the domestic U.S. And then they say, now they clearly allowed more of advanced drone technology to in the airspace, in our
I know,
airspace.
dude. There
domestically.
was over the LA protests just a couple weeks ago. They had Reaper drones. I was like, Reapers,
that's right.
Reapers are capable of dropping fucking tomahawks, dude. Like,
Hellfire
They-
missile.
or
I mean,
Hellfire,
they
whatever
had
it is. Yeah.
robot dogs. They had robot dogs.
Yeah.
You never know what's real or what's not, but they had robot dogs. I mean, we've been talking about this for decades, like that. This nightmare.
But see, here's my dilemma because I've come around on the immigration issue in a major way, and I'm now fully in the camp of like the nation was being conquered through intentional migrant floods
Yeah,
and
for
funding
sure.
of it. So I want that process stopped, and I actually would like to see it reversed to some extent. But I also recognize that like the tools that they're utilizing to bring that to bear,
They're using a sledgehammer when they need a scalpel.
right? Well, that and also it's the technocracy we're talking about. Plus, I don't like. Yes, I want the fucking immigrants deported or the illegal immigrants deported, but I don't want predator drones over fucking Americans, dude.
This is why I never really got into the whole bordertarian thing, and I've kind of been torn on it. I understand, especially from a libertarian perspective, I understand both arguments when it comes to theory. I completely get it. I've read Hoppe, like I understand, but I also have lived in the real world and I've seen how this plays out every single fucking time. And if you look back over the past, I don't know how long, what have we seen so far as any immigration actions of any substance whatsoever? It's all been fucking, oh, they don't like Israel, fucking send them out of here. Oh,
Right.
and then a bunch of fucking, I've seen nothing but a bunch of bullshit, boomers bickering about, was that really a gang member? Is this really a gang member? Doing it like the most retarded fucking ways possible. All this done in the most clumsiest way. It almost genuinely, it just seems like from the outside looking in, I know I'm going to make probably your audience really upset with it. It almost looks like it'd be better if they didn't do a fucking thing.
Well,
The
it's
US
also
fucking, well, call it an open border all you want, but it'd be better off if they just kept their dirty dick fingers out of it.
the hypocrisy of that you can't come here and criticize this country, so they get rid of you. And then Jordan Peterson, and his daughter are doing exactly that.
Right.
And there's nobody calling for them to deport.
Well,
except for
let me be the first.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly think that every one of these scenarios seemingly fall into the, this is a precedent-setting operation. And
Yeah.
I think they're always
that's what I'm
attempting-
worried about.
Yeah, and that's why I just personally, man, like in every way, I think when you witness this infringement upon the First Amendment, utilizing anti-Semitism as a justification, right? It's just like, I don't know. At a certain point,
IHRA working definition.
Dude, people should be so scared of what Karp is saying right now. The guy who runs Pelletier, what's his name? Karp.
Oh, Alex Karp?
Yeah, what that guy is saying out loud
I'm working
is
on
the scariest thing. And I don't care if you're like a kindergarten teacher who likes puppy dog videos and you don't do you think you do nothing.
Right.
That motherfucker wants you to live in fear.
Yeah, he openly was going on about how that's how we stay safe. We make sure our enemies are in fear.
Yep.
And if there's someone that means anything bad to you, they're an enemy. They should go to fear. Those around them, their family, anyone they love, they should all be. You're like, oh my God, dude, you are on camera right now.
Yeah.
I've been working on a deep dive special on Palantir, specifically, which will come out probably in a week. I've been traveling, but I couldn't agree more. Like his entire mentality is like, it's the stuff of horrors.
It's
like
comic villain shit.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's really hard to overstate it. But what's really scary about that guy is the moral certitude, the absolute confidence to get on a fucking stage in front of like the titans of industry and just talk about how like this is all good. Like, yeah, we fucking kill people. Yeah. Yeah, we do. And yeah, we've taken out tons of fucking Palestinians. And sure, 80%, like his argument was something to the effect of like 80% of them are like, we're pretty sure we're Hamas. It's like, all right, well, what about the 20%, bro?
This is
We
massive.
were giving a really good thumbs up.
And like the weird psychological operation that's going on with these Zionist idiots and saying the exact, like, even if it's authentic, which I think to a point it is, crying about hospitals getting bombed, crying about children being targeted, children dying, when they've been doing that exact same thing for 2 years now in Gaza, and not only like doing it, but gleefully bragging about it. And like Laura Loomer's tweets are so insane that you go, dude, did you run that by anybody before you tweeted that? Oh no, dead Palestinian babies. Who says that out loud?
And I've met Laura. I like Laura. She's very nice in person. I can't believe the shit she says. Like it honestly like concerns me for her
I think
soul.
Tim Dillon broke her. Got hit that. Tim Dillon broke her.
What did Tim Dillon
When
do?
Tim Dillon talked about how Pelletier kept begging him to come to dinner,
Oh, okay.
Oh my god.
and he's like, "I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I would lose my
And-
entire fan base. They know I would." Because he knows the key is authenticity. Like they listen to him
Of
as
course.
this voice of reason.
Yeah.
And he knows the minute he starts going, maybe Palantir is in a serious mode. And I'm doing the Tim Dillon laughing joke stuff, but he knows he loses crowd because he's watching it happen to Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson,
Yeah,
Daily Wire.
he was saying that Peter Thiel had invited him to dinner multiple times, and he's
Have you
like,
heard about his parties? Peter Thiel's parties?
no, I haven't. I certainly haven't been invited.
Let's just say this guy fucks.
Yeah,
all right?
absolutely.
I mean, if you're a gay man
Yeah.
like Tim Dillon and another powerful gay man invites you to a party,
Interesting.
That is
just like, what do you want for dinner? Twink, super twink, mega twink. Like, what kind of twink do you want?
This dude has been like receipts have been shown of him entering fucking like 18, 19-year-old like college kids fucking like DMs trying to come to his like elite sex parties at like nearby colleges. This guy also his model boyfriend fell out of this I think it was second or higher. It fell out of a higher floor of his like sick ass penthouse that used to be owned by the Bronfmans who were
that
involved
happens
in
all the time.
they were involved in the Nixium cult at the time.
Hey,
Dude, what about the guy
who hasn't had their gay lover accidentally fall out of the second story penthouse while you're
was
involved
that?
in the
What
Nexium cult?
What is the Geffen?
I
Like
know the
that
name.
dude is crazy, dude.
He's a
Because
music
he
guy?
would show up, he would show up to campuses and kids would disappear,
Oh my god.
and then he would just move on.
And like Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Show me where the bodies are buried, Garth.
I mean, that's some.
Shout out Tom Segura, got another season of Bad.
He started that.
That's a great fucking show, dude.
Yeah.
So shout out to him, dude.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, closeted gays, right? Am I right?
All right. So let me go back to make the counter argument that I think that oftentimes Israel is actually the dog wagging us, and I'm not disagreeing with the banking establishment being higher than just Israel, higher than the Federal Reserve for that matter. I agree with you on that. But you look at the clean break memo. You look at the
You can go through the Daya Doctrine, the Gaza 2035, Project for Israel in the 1980s. It's a Greater Israel Project
Protocols
is
of
the
Zion.
it's just literally that's why they have no position. This isn't about October 7th. October 7th was the door that opened, allowed them to go after all these projects
just like 9/11
they've been
was.
talking about forever. Yeah.
Just like 9/11. and
Project for a
they even
New
said
America.
They needed
New- Project for a New Century. Or
Next-
whatever.
New American Century. But it was just like what they said in those documents was that we would need a new Pearl Harbor.
Exactly.
What happens? 9/11 happens, then boom, we take out, half of Israel's enemies. And then over the next 20 plus years, we just continue to slowly topple these dominoes that happen to all be all of their enemies, all in their neighborhood. And it's like, at some point, like it just begs, incredulity to be like, all right, come on, man. Like this is fucking obviously
This
not
is the
for
big
us.
finale. And I do think this is a point I wanted to bring up earlier. Have you seen the newest reporting? I believe I saw Dave DeCamp and Anti-War reporting on it. That now the rhetoric is shifting. I believe it's from the CIA. I forget who they're claiming, but essentially now it's being seeded out. That, oh no, a bunker buster won't do it.
Right.
It would need to be a nuke.
Yeah,
I know,
no,
dude.
man.
Yeah, so
Well,
it's like we're at what
and-
we need a nuke to save
But
the day.
but hold on. Think about this. So
sad.
So
Yeah,
10,
it is.
10 days ago, it was, we're not asking for shit from you. Just fucking let us do our business. Israel's got this. And then it becomes, all right, well, we can take out basically everything. They don't stand a chance with us militarily, but we might need, munitions. We might need aid. And then it was, well, we can't take out the nuclear facilities. We need bunker busters. And then it's like, oh, well, that won't work. We need nukes. And then Trump's saying, we're not even sure if that'll work. Now they're talking about fucking ground. And this is the point about the escalatory trap that like once you start down this fucking slippery slope, it's not a mental flaw to describe it that way. This is how all of these wars began. The difference is that from 2002 to 2003, or really from 01, from 9/11 until 03 when we invaded Iraq, it was this slow, drawn-out process because we didn't have the internet. We had to have Fox News and CNN and MSNBC slowly propagandizing the American people to get ready for it and to convince us that they were actually behind 9/11 when they weren't. This is like on a fucking sped-up time scale like I've never seen before. In 2 weeks, they've done the entire Iraq buildup lies. They've done it in 2 weeks.
Now, I know we're all really hopeful on the propaganda side. I am too, but I do think one thing we really need to pay attention to. I know a lot of us have been quick to jump to, like, give props to a lot of these certain characters that we typically see as somewhere along the line riders or something like the Tim Pools of the world. The Charlie Kirks is probably a great example. But
God.
if you listen to
He has a radio show on this in Florida. I was just trying to go because every
Charlie Kirk has a
station.
radio show. Didn't even
Yeah,
know.
it's really fucking nuts. If you listen to it, it's like something out of Idiocracy.
Yeah.
Wait, was it bad?
Oh, it's so bad.
But if you listen to their rhetoric, though, they're still, yes, they're saying we don't want regime change, but there's still this kind of murky between all of them, whether they're accepting it's okay for Israel to be doing what they're doing. And even then, they're tacitly kind of accepting every little bit of propaganda that comes across. So literally, they're in a holding position. I know we're all giving them props and like, oh, that's fucking cool.
Yeah,
but they're in a holding position.
Dude.
These people sway the moment a false flag happens, the moment they have that narrative shifting thing, whatever that is, whatever their given thing is. And false flag probably gonna be the last thing or something. And
I have this
boom.
really weird theory that you may see the end of Israel and it
Possible.
gets replaced with something else.
Like Ukraine?
Well, they could move that whole population to Ukraine and let them do it over here.
Yeah.
And they just bring in a new population to kind of take over that area because the Israeli brand is dead.
Oh man.
It's never going to come back. And it's going to be even twice dead, more dead, if they lead us into World War III and our sons and daughters start dying. You're
100%.
never going to get America back to respecting that group of people again. I used to love Israelis. I used to talk about how I never met a bad Israeli in my life. They were always fun. I used to love watching Israeli soldiers twerk. They're so hot. And I was just like, I love them. And then all of this stuff happens. But if they draw us into a war, and like I want to tell you, they're fucked. If there is a false flag, I don't know anybody that follows this stuff that will think it's anybody but Israel.
It's been the goal. I mean, Wesley Clark, obviously, right? The 7-country plan. I mean, honestly, it feels like there is truly an international cabal in my mind, and I do agree. I think that Israel will be the scapegoat. I think that Netanyahu will take the political puppet fall. It'll look very ugly. I think it's inevitable. I think you look at he had no political credibility in the first place. His political capital was basically just let's pull him out of this prison situation and essentially put him on the path where he has no other choice but to do our bidding in these terms. And it does very much feel like as far as like I'm considering the sort of like you have international global oil markets that are very much tied to the Strait of Hormuz as well.
Massively.
And you wonder why these refinement facilities in Iran are being strategically targeted, prioritized as well. And then the Strait of Hormuz, you're seeing these oil tankers on fire already. Basically, Iran said that they threatened to set up a blockade, and this is all within the framework of the New Deal they just signed. This new train, apparently, it's the new Silk Road. It's the Belt and Road Initiative with China. And basically, as soon as this was agreed to, really, I think the 60-day negotiations began, and it was all in bad faith. And from day one, it was essentially bend the knee to the West, or else. And that's it. Separate from China. Although I do think that most of this could even potentially, this is where I question things, and I think that's layered for the interpretation. Who's controlled opposition at the leadership level, right?
Bro,
Because it's difficult to
I
question.
can't fucking figure it out. I
think China's a paper tiger.
Right.
I think they're building China up the same way they built up the USSR. And this time it's going to be involved, instead of nukes, it's going to be involved AI. And you see them, hey, dude, you can't write a law. You can't do anything about AI.
Government.
You got to let AI develop. And there's no state can pass a law that at all stops that growth. And they keep using China. China's AI, dude, we get a millisecond behind them. They got us.
I'm telling you, Mark Andreessen, right, goes on Rogan, starts selling him on basically AI government, right? And look at his connections, obviously, Andreessen, right? And then to Thiel, everything, right? And Elon himself, what's his grandfather's name? Haldeman, Technocracy Incorporated. That's what he was affiliated with. Like, it's fascinating stuff.
These are the people that are literally capitalists. And I mean in the derogatory way, in the way that when the commies say capitalist and the way when capitalists and communists talk to each other and they talk past each other, like what they mean when they say it, that's who these people are. That literally what they do, like Andreessen, Eric Weinstein, what do they do? Move money around, which is like, okay, that's a genuine, I mean, that's obviously a legitimate function in the economy. But when you have, aberrations such as America that's been distorted in such artificial ways. What these are is people have developed relationships, corrupt relationships, and are just moving money around and benefiting off of it.
That's the point that I wanted to make, is that in a actual sound money capitalist model, then there's nothing dishonorable about being a money manager, because you're actually you're you're checking for risk parameters, and you're making sure that the person who's delayed gratification to accumulate that wealth is making some sort of reasonable return and not losing their assets. The problem with this establishment and the banking establishment now is that it's all based off fiat. It's all based off of printing presses and borrowing and relationships with the powerful
Government
at the highest
contracts.
level and government
Yeah.
contracts. So
Yeah.
it's literally theft on so many levels
Mm.
that, like, if you do get to the highest level of this system, like, it's almost impossible not to be deeply corrupted as a consequence.
You are
And
not the Howard
that's
Rourke character that
right.
you want to
Oh my
God, you know?
Yeah, and you're also not, the Atlas Shrugged. I'm blanking
Yeah.
on his name. It's like,
yeah, Galt?
yeah, John Galt.
yeah.
And that's what kills me
I read
about
Fountainhead,
this.
not that.
Yeah,
Right.
That's a shorter book. That's what kills me about this, is that, like, I'm still an Austrian economics guy, and I still strongly believe that capitalism is the model that brings the most people out of poverty and that it benefits humanity the most.
Free market.
But I'm also smart enough to understand that, like, we don't function in that system.
We don't.
And it's a big mistake to defend the current paradigm
Mhm.
and defend it as if it is capitalism, because that's what gives rise to the Marxist hordes, that they then go, well, if this is capitalism, fuck this. And I'm like, you're right, actually. Fuck
Mhm.
this. This is immoral. This is
Well,
corrupt.
crony capitalism is
Exactly.
still
Yes.
better than communism.
It is. It
You
is.
can no, I'm not agreeing with it. I
Yeah.
hate it.
Yeah.
But I would take it
Yeah.
over
Oh,
communism.
agreed.
I
Agreed.
mean, in California right now, the largest employer in the state is the government. That is socialism. And that beast must always be fed. And it's constantly growing because you're just adding more administrators and more administrators and more administrators. And then now everybody's on the government tip and nobody can question everything,
That-
or else you'll lose your fucking job. That is socialism.
Yeah. And it's not just California. That's nationwide. The number one employer in America is the government.
Jesus. To bring it back to the AI thing, the irony, I think maybe why I brought it to the capitalist, kind of the irony of the whole China, USA, like back and forth AI, whatever, vying for whatever the future. The irony is actually, if you look, the key, one of the key takeaways is China's actually been operating far more on free market principles in their implementation of their AI, as opposed to where we are doing this, like, oh, we're going to take a few government contractors and pay them hundreds of millions of dollars to create this beautiful product that, while completely taking out all of the
It
market,
stifles
yes,
innovation.
exactly. Yes. Yeah. So China's
Which-
beating us
which
in the
is-
free market.
Which is why China's winning that race. But it's also like
Open source.
Yeah, but I'm also in the camp of, like, and this is another very unlibertarian thing to say, but, like, I was driving. I don't care. I like to think freely, so fuck it. I was driving to Best Buy yesterday, which I haven't been to a retail store for anything in fucking forever, because I'm trying to replace this soundboard because I knew you guys were coming to town and I wanted to be able to fucking record. Anyways, and I'm driving around and I'm like, I remember when I was a kid, every commercial real estate was like popping, like nice restaurant, retail store, Sears or Kmart or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, half of America worked in these places, and they're all ghost towns. Like, almost every single one is a ghost town. And then I start to think, as I'm in my, deep in thought, and I'm like, dude, Jeff Bezos came out of nowhere, and he
didn't come out of nowhere. You know that.
Well, no, I know.
You know, his grandfather helped establish DARPA.
I do.
He's a LARP.
Sorry. I don't mean that, but I mean, he swoops in. Okay.
Yeah.
He swoops in, and not even him, but whatever the fuck the power brokers behind him is. And they just ate everything. It was like they fucking consumed the entire retail sector of America, like, in a decade, 20 years.
When you go to the mall, it's crazy. Like,
It's
I
ghost
was a
town.
kid, I'd love to go to the mall.
Yep.
And now social media has filled that kind of
Yep.
desire to hang out and look around. It's
Like
crazy.
no one has any personal contact or communication as a consequence of this. And look, I'll be the first to admit, like, the first one of these I got because I didn't need it, the same day. I got it off Amazon. All right. So like it has cut costs. It has made life easier in some regards, but the trade-off is really significant and meaningful. And
Yeah,
I'm not
jobs.
I'm not the type to go like, well, we got to bring back horse and buggy because it put the fucking the horseshoemen out of business. Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying if you look at the change to our cultural framework and the fact that like kids don't work anymore, like a huge percentage of kids don't work.
There's a talk in stand-up that people putting out all these clips and all these specials online that people aren't going to comedy clubs like they used to.
I believe it.
Because they're just like, I'll just watch it online.
And these are the things that I just don't want to see die. But anyways, the point that I'm trying to get to, and it's a long drawn out way to get there. But then I'm contrasting that and the cultural degradation that was a consequence of Amazon basically eating the entire retail sector's lunch, and then you consider what AI is going to do, and I'm like, freak.
I mean, this comes back to kind of what we were talking about before, though, all the distortions that occur in the market. I really feel like, obviously, I know it sounds like, oh, my utopia, when we run this counter narrative through, everything would be so much better. But genuinely, I do think, had there not been these, distortions in the market, this would have probably been a much, more fluid, much more. I mean, but think about, we had fucking COVID. Think about, like, that was one that cleared it out. That was entirely artificial.
And anybody that hadn't been killed by Amazon was killed by COVID.
Exactly.
It was like the final fucking nail, dude.
And it's like in California, it's so hard to start a business. And what they do something, you just saw that video in San Diego where the guy was working at a bar that's closing that night, and he ran out and he grabbed the hot dog vendor and knocked it down, and people were yelling at him, but I go, I get it. He's losing his job. He doesn't have a job now because no one's going to the restaurant and they're just buying hot dogs from a hot dog vendor that has to pay it doesn't have to get any permits and anything like that.
And just to back you up, in California, in San Diego, to get the permits to, have a restaurant, have the retail store, the rent that you're paying for that, the inspections, everything else, it's major money. So at that point, you literally, like people go, oh, well, just fucking compete. You can't compete, dude. No. You can't compete with a fucking hot dog stand.
Law, you can't be within 500 feet of a brick and mortar.
Well, or you have to drop all of the fucking regulations on the businesses and actually let them compete, because you can't have both simultaneously. You can't have unlimited illegal immigration and dudes just setting up fucking shop wherever they want, and then everybody who's domestic born has to go through the licensing shit, otherwise they go to jail.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? You're
absolutely
literally
ridiculous.
Creating the dynamic by which you have revolutions, by which the domestic population goes, fuck this, fuck the system, I'm burning everything down. I don't want to see that. But like they are putting us in that paradigm, and I just don't think people.
Well, I think the
enough.
future is black markets.
Yeah,
I think it's going to go where you're either in a gang, a mob, some kind of militia, and everything's going to be black market.
Don't you think that it's kind of by design?
And by the way, black market is free market.
Yeah,
right.
Not necessarily.
If you take away all the the really disgusting stuff,
but it's typically usually just black people.
Yeah.
It's basically America's going to be a giant swap meet.
But I feel like
giant slave auction.
What is this, Libya?
Fuck.
I mean, Mexicans get in on it too, okay? But
I honestly think by design they're attempting to bring down the American citizen.
I know,
financially, economically down a peg.
But I don't like it.
I don't either. And
I don't like it.
No, and they are. And what it's really about is creating it so we're so dumb and unhealthy that we can't figure out how our government operates. And then we can't come to the understanding that the Federal Reserve funds everything you hate in the world. It funds the false reality that is projected onto God's reality. So when you watch, I mean, Apple TV used to be so good, and now it's so woke. It's out of control.
It's all DEI shit. You were. It's like distorts the fuck out
Dude,
of the market.
Murder Robot. Have you watched Murder Robot? It's the greatest name for the worst fucking show ever.
I watched 5
the
minutes
guys
of it.
are all idiots, and you got a 65-year-old black woman and like two ethnic lesbians, and they're the only ones saving anybody.
Of course,
they're stabbing people, shooting people, and the guys are like, I don't know what to go. And it's so unfortunate because it was the best. And what Apple used to do is like, okay, this is woke, but you don't know it till it's too late. They had this show called Hijack, and it was such a great show. And it had
that was Idris Elba, right?
Yeah, it was so good, dude. And then by with 3 episodes left, you go, oh my God, they've convinced us to watch a show where a black guy has to stop a hijacking by white terrorists on a Middle Eastern flight.
That's so funny.
I didn't even put that together. Oh my God, dude, that's amazing.
And it's so good.
Yeah,
but now they've said, nah, dude, fuck it. The difference between before Trump got in and after Trump got in, before Trump got in, they celebrated the DEI. They're like, look how woke this show is. Isn't it amazing? Now they're like,
Yeah. No, you're right. And I mean, this is why I was talking so much about ESG.
should we bring Josie in?
I'm gonna bring her in a
Okay,
second.
I feel she's sitting
Yeah.
out there.
This is why I talked about ESG and DEI so much in the past, is that I recognized that it was creating these market signals that were going to ultimately force feed us propaganda naturally. Like, that's the whole purpose of it. There's like no real market for, like, I want every lead actor, I want every heroine in every show to be a lesbian, and they have to be a minority. And if you could put them in a wheelchair, that's even better. It's like nobody wanted that.
There is a term for what that is, and it's in my phone. I don't have it on me, but it's basically, it's like Korean Fazasa or something like that. I mess up the name, but it's basically an old communist trick. And what you do is you slowly install party loyalists at every single position the whole way up. So by the
It's all
time you're
loyalty
done,
tests.
it's now everybody's a Marxist.
Everything's a Steiner or Berg at that point.
Yeah, everything's a Marxist, and that's why Hollywood is fucked, because
Emperor
they
has no clue.
can not get out of it. The people who run the channels or the stream service, they all know nobody's watching.
Yeah.
And the people watching go, I don't want to watch this, but they can't do anything because the middle is just rot.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, honestly, the reason I brought up the idea that they're trying to bring the American people down financially, economically a peg, is because I honestly think that what is in the works this moment, of course, is what it looks to be a total escalation in almost every geopolitical landscape that you can point out, to the point to where it seems like there is a clear escalation that is seemingly sort of setting the stage for an actual, international world conflict. And I think that is by design as well, because this clearly it always takes, fundamentally in my mind, it takes a major war to sort of just restructure global society. Right. And every single time that tends to be the unfortunate inevitable outcome. Right. And I'm just like very concerned, considering, I mean, from day one, my number one expectation above all else, and I had zero hope for Trump, honestly, as much as
I think Trump is exactly what everybody thought he was going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
He did exactly, if you really studied him, you go, oh, this is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, we were calling he was going to cuck for Israel so hard. weren't we?
100%,
I
man.
mean, if anything, I mean, you were more pessimistic than I was. A little bit hopeful that maybe, because there was that lie we were solar. Actually, I don't know if it's a lie. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not. I want to take a moment actually to re-emphasize. There's only two ways you can look at this, like from the U.S. perspective, how you can really view Trump. I think personally after this, he either was entering these peace talks in good faith, and Israel blew it up. In that case, let's be real, kind of a bitch.
Right.
The other option is he the entire time through was faking, or at some point along the line. So it's some combination of the two.
Right.
So that, or essentially, I guess, a weasel, and it's someone that really, why would anyone ever interact with in good faith?
Absolutely.
I don't know why I took the moment to re-emphasize that. I was talking to some other point. But
Josie, any
Hi,
thoughts?
Josie.
Actually, I'm Clint. I'm a former money manager.
Wow.
No, hi guys. I'm just jumping in now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Any
good.
thoughts on maybe if you heard anything or what we're talking about?
I did hear that attractive women need to be millionaires.
Yeah.
I am not a millionaire. I'm mid.
we said if they had no morals. So
That's right. Okay, so I've got some morals to back that
Yeah.
up.
No, we were talking about this escort that was this Vicky Morse, and she was like she got pregnant at 16, had a kid, and then just wanted to become famous. And she went to LA, and she was at a diner, and this billionaire saw her, and she just became his side piece. But she's dating the heads of Saudi Arabia and all this. And you're like, what a crazy jump that is. That is just possible because you're a super hot woman.
What do you guys think about that Minnesota shooter? Man, there's some more stuff that came. I haven't had a chance to cover.
How
in
about
the
that
morning
story
show.
just dying on the
Well,
vine?
it came back up. You might have missed the most recent news, but apparently, I don't know. I haven't looked into it. Yeah, the Tim Walz thing about that. Like, apparently, he's now claiming. I mean, I haven't looked into the minutia, so I don't know the sources. So I don't know if it's like if there's a video or what. But at least the articles are saying currently that he made claims. Bolter, the shooter, made claims that Walz tried to get him to kill. What was
Amy
it?
Klobuchar.
Klobuchar. I almost said Hochul, but Klobuchar. Yeah.
And she's a Democrat, right?
Yeah, which is like I don't
Because
understand the
he
angle.
wanted to run for Senate, so
Yeah.
he needed to
That's
have.
so
That is
funny.
so.
I mean, Tim Walz, he came off to me as a kind of retarded. So
By the way, I think he said that in the debate.
This
which
seems too
is a
easy.
thing you're never
Retarded.
supposed to say.
Doesn't it seem
I'm kind
too
of
easy?
retarded.
yeah, right. I'm kind of retarded.
Doesn't this feel too easy though?
Yeah.
But it's like there should be like really. It's just that he told you this, and there was this. Yep,
Oh,
okay. Tim
absolutely.
Walz ordered
He
it.
said
Like,
he was trained by special ops military. He was like, I was trained by the military to do this, and Tim Waltz wanted me to
I
take
mean, I
out this
believe
person.
that happens. This
Yeah.
feels too easy.
Yeah,
I know, but I
Well,
also
that's MK Ultra, right?
yeah, I'm under the impression I looked into the Praetorian Security company that he was affiliated with. His wife was like the manager of it as well, and she got arrested after. So he's in custody. She gets caught at a state line with her family, and she basically gets apprehended with passports, ammunition, guns. Like, so it was crazy.
Kind of like Paddock and his estranged
It's
wife. Remember how
100%,
Paddock,
dude.
like his wife from like over a decade ago, that then like they then buy a property together, like they're like they're like right next to each other under the same parent company.
do
That
you know
was like
what they did? They
Exactly.
made this story go away. They wanted the story to go away, so they brought in the roommate who worked at
Yeah.
Papagino's and
what the fuck?
like slept on their couch. And they're like, all right, look at this guy. This guy's trustworthy. We trust him. And he says that this is a Trump supporter. Make it go away.
Exactly
This
what
is the
happened.
note. This is the last thing everybody needs to remember. And then we're going to make it go away. But then it came back up when he said, oh, yeah, I was hired. Tim Waltz hired me to do a hit.
That is insane.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
yeah.
nobody's done anything.
No, and he
How
even
crazy is
I'm
that?
telling you, man. And this Praetorian security company, so he had not only been affiliated with this, he had like a number of different jobs, which blew me away. One of them was he was specifically going to criminal scenes of homicide, and he was apparently gathering the bodies, taking them to a specific morgue. Now I know how this works in the realm
Raise
of
a few
covert
flags.
intelligence, right, and clandestine intelligence, and how they utilize
take this
these
body.
specific morgues. And yeah, not only organ harvesting, but there's
Yeah.
so much more to it, especially if you're considering like a criminal, obviously like a criminal case such as this, where clearly you would want to kind of like, in my mind, there's the cover up that's being facilitated, right, in every way. And I just like, it's, to me, that was strange. But not only that, he had been apparently providing security in the Middle East, in
you
South
brought that,
America.
you brought that up
One
on
of
whatever
them
this is.
was in the
And
West
yes,
Bank.
no, you're right.
Well,
He was doing security on that, and then that company just went bankrupt out of the blue. Around the same time, Doge was shutting down all the
Oh my God.
USAID companies.
That's amazing.
One point. All right. So this dude that was
Bolter?
responsible, Bolter, the
Yeah.
guy that was responsible for killing these politicians, he
Supposedly, we don't even know. I don't even know how they know this.
Who knows? Who knows? Right? but this is the official story. This guy is in front of. He is already shot, and I don't know if he killed them, but badly injured. Shot them like 10 times, and they survived, which makes no fucking sense. But anyways, he then goes to the next politician's house.
Oh yeah,
The cops. Yo,
Yeah, imagine.
Check
Imagine.
this out. The cops go and they check that house just because they know there's another politician living there, allegedly. So they're there. They get into a shootout with the guy.
They hit him. They hit him.
Outside,
They hit them.
outside in front of the house, and
The
then
cops admittedly hit the
but then hold on, and then he runs inside during the shootout, and the cops don't follow him in. He then goes and kills those people,
Mhm.
and then he goes out the back. He takes off his body armor while he's in a gunfight, and his mask, and then he gets away. He's a 60-year-old fucking
You also
dude.
left out the interaction. Maybe
That's
about this
born
interaction,
identity shit.
but according
right?
to I forget it was maybe the AG of that. But then anyway, I can check on my morning show. I'll give you the specific source. I think I already talked.
Well,
about
I mean, like, look
but-
at the George.
But sorry, real quick. Then another thing he left out, the absurd nature. It literally claimed that there was a cop that tried to approach him, and I think it's Fargo. Someone I saw someone make a equation to there's like
That's
a
so
scene
funny.
where he does that like that. But literally, I guess the cop came up to him. It says he rolled down his window, and they tried to talk to him. He didn't respond. He just looked straight forward, and I guess the cop just left. So you literally
Holy
just kind
shit.
of like
He's in his
dead stared
he's
at
in
him,
Manchurian mode.
and then just
Yeah.
kind of, and the cop just kind of like, okay, which like they made it. I think it was Fargo or
Minnesota's
something where there's like a scene
crazy.
where he's like, we can go this, or you can just go in your car and walk away.
If you
kind
saw
of thing.
the George Floyd stuff, nobody ever goes, where did he get the counterfeit money from?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's from the nightclub that he worked at,
Yeah.
that the Chinese were funneling.
He's supposedly
Come on.
working with it, Chauvinet.
Yeah,
right?
and that's why
Exactly.
he shows up. And then he does the thuggy assassination position which is like you can go if you look up thuggy assassins, every picture is the assassin on the back.
No way.
40% of the porn game too. I totally forgot about that.
I did
Which
not
is
know
like
that.
obviously knowing our research, that's significant.
Hell yeah, it's significant.
Like,
It's crazy what's out there, dude.
100%. Man.
It's really crazy. It's like super tragic, and it's like I believe human beings would just chill if there wasn't this hidden hand that's just riling everything up, creating chaos, and it just gets into that. There's this like this dark, like these masters of mankind are basically of a. I don't even think they're humans, man. Whatever they are,
Yeah.
they're just predators walk amongst us, right?
literally
It's like
demons,
wolves
and I'm
and
not religious.
chihuahuas.
Yeah.
I
We're
mean,
the chihuahua, they're the fucking wolves.
yeah, they're demons, and I'm not even religious. Like, I mean, through a lot of our research, it comes back to you look into like DID, like dissociative identity disorder, and like just all. And once you start digging this, you realize it's like when we talk about things like necromancy or demons or being possessed or any other spooky things we talk about in the past, and like it's like, okay, well, think about all the secret schools that were going on and all the different like these are things that have been passed on for time. Things like hypnosis. What the hell was that to somebody 3,000 years ago? If you're able to make somebody your slave through by implementing intense sexual and physical trauma upon them, what do you think they were doing?
Everything is
What do you
just
think they describe
sex
that as?
magic.
Someone who can do what we just described with Bolter. That's a fucking demon.
Yeah.
That's a demon, and that could have been made by the U.S. government. And I think they've been doing this for thousands of years, just using different terms.
I think they have been too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're up against. Old banking families that have been running
Very old
everything,
magic.
manipulating. And then I've said this before. I said on Rogan. I think the old gods want to come out and play. I think they've been allowing the Abrahamic religions to be in control and be the forefront. And now you have all the Zoroastrianism, the Babylonian gods
Well, you
that
get
all
to
just
the-
want to come out
yeah,
and be
you
like,
get to
we're
the core
tired of
them,
sitting in the
and
shadow.
they're all about aeonic change or accelerationism.
Oh, man.
If you get down to the core of all these different beliefs that a lot of them you're talking about, Sabbateanism, it's all about essentially doing evil to create this new age. And so I do think in their head they might be like, shit, we're getting near the end of that new age. I do think it's quite fucking coincidental. It's also the same time we're about to go hit it off with Iran. They're like, I think we're about to hit our big penultimate fucking moment. The evil people, behind the scenes, I do think they think they're at their moment. And I think they may be like, this is what our aeonic change has led to. All the accelerations and whatever different term, depending on the cult that it is, or whatever, it all kind of comes to the same basic thing. We're going to do evil, and this is going to create chaos. And out of chaos, we will create order. Like, it's basically what it all comes back down to. And that's kind of what we're seeing. And I do think like the old gods going to play. I do think like you look like it's all about subverting and inverting. So it's like, I think they're at the point where like, oh, okay, the new thing can take form and kind of rise from the shadows. And that might be what we're seeing.
They say the symbolism will be their downfall.
Yeah,
and so we see them like Ice Spice summoned a demon. I mean,
Right.
all of Lady Gaga, she has the babble that she does when she sings the songs. And that all roots back to like calling on God and witchcraft. And then SNL did something where they actually called on
Lamash too.
Lamash too.
Lamash too.
Yes, exactly.
It's
You
so
know, and it's
crazy.
like, but that's the thing. They do it, and they do it in front of big, huge
Yeah.
audiences. I mean, you go to concerts of any of the guys that married the Kardashians, and you go to their concerts, and it's like you're at something
Demon
satanic.
worship.
Exactly.
Oh,
yes.
man. Travis
I mean,
Scott.
how about the halftime show, Dr. Dre halftime show at the
Oh,
Super
yeah.
Bowl, where they're literally dancing on FEMA camp buildings.
Exactly. This is the alchemical process. In many ways, I think they have to sort of like I forget the terminology they utilize, but I think it's very important as far as the age of the Aeon of Horus, the age of Aquarius, as you were mentioning before. There is truly, this very much. I believe there are neo-pagan organizations that are very well established, and I think have infiltrated, levels of government as well, and that includes like a great example is the Delphi murders, which I've covered often, and at least I covered at a great extent in my own podcast, but I've talked about it a lot because essentially it's very recent too, right? 2017. I think Richard Allen just got sentenced in February in 2025. And I think he's an entirely innocent man, right? He's a patsy manufactured by the police, and what you witnessed there is this group called the Vinlander Group. This Vinlander Group is a neo-pagan organization. You look up Vinlander, it's like this old text that seems to be very much like the esoteric mysticism, but it provides them with this foundation and this path, right? And it very much is about essentially them and ruling over the ashes. And that truly is what I think when you consider the neo-pagan connotation where they consistently conduct like ritualistic sacrifice, blood sacrifice, right? Like that's exactly what happened in Delphi, right? They arranged the bodies and this Vinlander organization, and the bodies were arranged at the foot of a tree, the base of a tree. It was supposed to be Odin hanging from World Tree, and it's like this. It's fascinating, but what I found out is that this Vinlander group had they had infiltrated the local prison in Indiana, right? The prison complex in Indiana, and they were essentially like the prison guards were wearing Odinist patches,
Oh
right?
my
Yeah,
God.
yeah, and out of loyalty to their Vinlander group, which was directly involved with procuring Abby and Libby, right, for the Mononhigh Bridge Trail incident, which I believe there was a
He's
procurement
like a
process.
supercomputer.
Stop it. I think there was a procurement process set up through Snapchat. And this is like modern day. I think how these sadistic networks operate and function. It's disgusting, but it's like, of course, they're utilizing social media to essentially be
Because
living the life
764
of a
targeting
predator.
children, yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And so what happens is this Anthony Shots, right? Keegan Klein is his actual name, but this profile on Snapchat is called Anthony_Shots. And you look this motherfucker up, it's like the Jimmy Savile effect, right? Like it's like, yeah, he did it. 100% that guy raped children. You know what I mean? It's just fucked up. And this guy definitely, first of all, his Anthony_Shots profile on Snapchat was in contact, direct contact with Libby German, who's one of the victims, right, of the Delphi murders. And just as they're arriving at the Mononhigh Bridge Trail, she direct messages that Snapchat account.
Oh yeah.
And in my mind, I go, "Hey, we're here." Like that's kind of like how I feel. Maybe they were lured to this destination.
Yeah.
Where are
Yeah.
you? I'm
And
here.
and what was he doing with this profile? Man, the
He
way
used a
he would
fake
seduce
picture,
them,
right?
use a male model, this young male model, life of luxury, all these
All the
exotic
shit we did when
cars.
we were 12 to impress, adult
Exact-
women.
Yeah, yeah,
on
exactly.
on instant AOL instant messenger.
100%, dude. But yeah, it's like and it's so crazy because not only was that connected, they claim this this unrelated case that happened just around the exact same time of the Abby and Livy abduction and murders. That Anthony Shots profile was directly involved with. Well, there was another case where apparently he was in contact with this other girl, this young girl, and basically she had told him where she lived. She had essentially just doxed herself because she trusted this strange account. And what happened that night is that a masked man was outside her bedroom window.
This makes me think of I don't know, maybe this is maybe Clint may not appreciate this tangent, but I mean we're talking about how these things go as old as time. I mean like what 109 countries. Haha, like I mean what is blood libel? What like you guys have heard what is blood libel? Libel it's literally the accusation, like what it's referred to typically is that on Holocaust the Jews in these different countries would take a young Christian boy and essentially sacrifice him. No, I have no idea if that's true or not. I don't know. I've never studied the Judaism and spent all the time.
Probably is.
Yeah, but I can tell you, I mean, I've done the digging of like the rumor that goes around was this thing around that same time called Sabbateanism, which was an inversion of Judaism and essentially it was that same idea, this aeonic change type stuff, this idea that there was even a verse I remember when I was digging into it. If you look, like if you read, I guess if you misinterpret it, you can interpret it as like, oh, when the Messianic age comes, in the age of Messiah, essentially the laws will be inverted or something along those lines. If you misinterpret it. So the idea being is this cult, this Judaic cult took this as, during the time of Messiah, and they thought they were in the time of Messiah because their Messiah, Sabdi Levi, and then Jacob Frank in the second iteration. They thought that they were the Messiah, and they were in the age of the Messiah, and therefore God's laws had been inverted. What is good is bad, and what is bad is good. And so what does that mean? What are the worst things you could possibly do? I don't know. I just gave you a pretty good example of one of the worst things you could do.
Exactly.
And this is, I think at the time, it was something like, I forget the stats, so don't quote me on it, but it's like, I think at one point the majority of Jews in the world were Sabbateans. So, and then their whole thing of the Sabbateans, their whole big thing was subversion. I mean, if you're willing to invert the law, lying is now good, worshiping other gods is now good. All these other things extrapolate out from that. Like they literally were known for the first iteration of the Sabbateans. I think they transferred to Islam. The second one, they converted to Catholicism. It might be the other way around. I forget. I think I'm correct. But essentially, the point being is they had no qualms with pretending to be other religions and cloaking themselves
Well,
in those religions.
that's the whole thing about the Khazarians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, people dismiss that whole thing, but they were known for ambushing you, killing you, and assuming your identity.
My God.
And that's what they've always done. That's why they constantly change their names and all that stuff, you know. And it's just like, and just if you study Israel, like it's all a game plan to get this group. You weaponize them, you make them extremists, and they do all your dirty work to just grab all this land. You basically give them welfare to study the Talmud.
Oh, God.
You can like not have a job in Israel. You can work and get paid to study the Talmud.
Yeah.
That's
Paying
insane.
them to be
And it's just like, again, like, you know, like we have Jewish friends, we all love them. And like any group you go to high up in the power structure, they get more and more crazy.
Yep.
I think they've played every card so many times. Everyone knows the
They're going
game
for gold.
plan.
Yeah.
And I think they're just going to get, I think they're in deep trouble. The whole thing in the occult is, again, manufacturing consent, revelation of the methods.
Exactly.
It's like from Lost Boys. Like you got to invite the vampire in,
Right.
and they just can't do that right now because we know their playbook. And you know, as much as we can feel like it's futile what we're doing, I do believe that no kings, protest did not go off the way they wanted to because people like us, I'm not saying us personally, but everyone in our genre was talking about it so much. And we put out Walmart sponsoring it, all this stuff. And people are like, okay, I'm not going to this thing. It doesn't seem very authentic. And it probably is a bad idea. And I think that's how you work, man. You know, if you really want to make change, you got to make change from within. And by doing that, you show other people how to do it, and you give them the bravery, you know, to do things that maybe before they were scared to do.
Hey, brother. You played a pivotal role in my own path. As
I
far as
push
concerned,
culture.
dog. Yeah, exactly. I'm dead
I'm a
serious.
culture pusher. No, I
Culture-
appreciate you.
No,
You
I'm
always
serious,
say
man.
that. I am very thankful, and I enjoy our show together that we
Thank you,
do.
brother.
So I just get to sit back and watch that supercomputer go. And,
Stop.
but I mean, you can get really lost in it.
Yeah.
But I always said this: if they were winning and they could do anything they wanted, we would be straight up in lockdown all the time. They would have gotten rid of cash money already. We would have already tried to annihilate Iran. They would have passed all these anti-Semitism laws. They for whatever reason and whatever way back in the day when they invented all these occult rituals, they had to say they had to get our consent because of karma. And I don't think they can do it anymore.
Keep
I
pushing,
think
yeah.
if they try to push a BLM right now, it would fail miserably because so many black people, especially in the black conservative space, are wise to what's going on. And, you know, when you see black fatigue and black content creators talking about black fatigue, that's so important because the truth is the only change only happens from within. So you need the group on the inside to be like, hey, enough of this bullshit. You know, white people. Yeah, there was a lot of racism before. It wasn't until, you know, a group in the group was like, dude, we gotta stop doing this racist shit. And now you see it at it's a much lower like level. Same thing is gonna in the black community with this black fatigue. And the next one's gonna be is gay people and this pedophile shit.
Oh, God.
They're gonna have to be like, enough of this bullshit because you are really damaging our names.
Oh, man. They've been attempting to conflate, like, and I'm not, like, obviously, I'm not, like, I'm
Women
very.
too. Women
Oh,
with the Me
absolutely.
Too movement.
Yeah.
They're like, enough of this. You're like taking out guys for no evidence, no nothing. You're yelling, crying wolf. And then when something really happens, nobody wants to believe you because Amber Heard made everyone think she was getting like physically assaulted. And it turned out that she was taking shits on people's beds.
Yes, exactly. You know, going back into history, the original Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson drew up had the abolition of slavery in it, and Thomas Jefferson himself had slaves. So this is always this grand contradiction that people will talk about, like, well, he was a slave owner. It's like, you know what? He was a man and he had moral flaws.
Yeah,
And
if you could have slaves, you would too. You know?
the thing is, the
I'd be really
property
nice to
rights
my slave.
argument for
Just kidding.
slavery is the same argument as it is for
Mm.
abortion. It belongs to me. It's not a human. I can do with it what I want.
Oh, that's a great point. Never thought about that.
Yes. So we couldn't get the support that we needed to win the war with having this abolition of slavery into the Declaration of Independence. So they pulled it out. But then at the first Constitutional Convention, there is there's a moratorium on slavery, a 20-year moratorium at the first Constitutional Convention. So at the founding of this country, one of the first arguments that they had, and let me just say that the country almost wasn't formed over it. Like they took a 2-week recess because they didn't think they'd come to an agreement over the slavery. And that's why we have the 2/3 compromise or the 3/5 compromise and all of that, because the southern states were not having it. They were not going to have this. So they agreed to the moratorium, which was 20 years. And then they said at the end of that 20 years, no slaves into our country. That's it. We're done with the slave trade at that point, and you deal with what you have essentially. And then day one, the first day Thomas Jefferson was able to do that, he abolished the slave trade. He got rid of it, and there were still obviously bad actors still coming in for decades later with slaves, regardless of it. But the foundation of America, we were a new country. All right. And slavery had been a millenniums old.
Yeah, of course.
It's been around for millennia.
switching to electric
It's still
vehicles.
around. We still have it. It's
It's
still
in Libya.
there's an open air
black
slave
comic
trade.
or a rapper talk about
Yeah,
it.
open air slave trade in Libya right now. You know, it still exists, but nobody talks about it. So in America, we were a country for 77 years before they abolished 77, 84. I can't remember. I can't do the math in my head right now, but we were a country for just a handful of decades, one lifetime before we abolished slavery in this country. It was around longer in England. It was around longer in everywhere else. But America is the place where it's like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Like, how could you do this mortal sin? It's like, yeah, it was a sin. It was awful. But we were the first country to establish ourselves on ending it.
It's very interesting because you bring up language. Like, that's a big point about the Bible and the Old Testament. It's like, you know, people lose their mind over like the things in the Bible, but you got to go, that was written at a time when they talk like that. They were a lot more blunt. They were a lot more, they were just really straightforward what they said.
Translate like 20 times.
They didn't self-censor.
Yeah. And they were, so when they're like, go kill all these people, it's almost like a sports term. Like, go kill them, beat them, destroy them. Nobody really wants anyone to die on the playing field. And when they do talk about murking all these Canaanites, they were all Nephilim giants.
Right.
That's it. People don't talk about that. They weren't, and they were already having child sacrifice. So, yeah, everything is language.
Yeah.
You know, when they go back and they watch Eminem video, they listen to Eminem, Gen Zers lose their mind. But you're like, that was acceptable at that time. And it should be now, which I think, because of you guys and a lot of people in the comedy space and Leonardo, people are going back to like, they're just words.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't call black people the N-word because they get sad. Then they get violent, but they get sad. You know what I'm saying?
Just my choice.
Oh my God.
In the Declaration of Independence, a lot of people are like, oh, well, it was just taxes. Taxes were bad. And that's why
Taxes are so bad.
there's 27 grievances, right? Taxes are bad. And that's the 17th grievance. So King George was arming foreigners to come into our country and kill us. So he had armed the Hessians to come in, and he had armed Canadians, and he had armed the Native Americans. And he also, the other thing they were doing, the British Navy was taking colonists out into the sea and saying, all right, we're either going to throw you overboard, you're going to go back and kill your friends and family. And this is all written in the grievances of the Declaration of Independence. However, what's written in there, Thomas Jefferson calls the natives merciless Indian savages. And that's what everybody gets stuck on. The language of that, not the fact that they were coming in and murdering women and children to the point where and being armed by a tyrant king to do so, but that's where people get stuck. It's like the words are worse than the actions that
your ancestors talk like that.
Yeah.
That's how they talked at that time.
We all have an uncle that says colored.
Yeah.
Right. I have feeling ours to say more.
The NAACP
It's
still
because
has colored in
the
it.
way yes,
Right.
the way that the language evolves and to make it a little better. And then it's like black people was offensive for a while.
Yeah.
You couldn't say black people, and then it became people of color, and then it went back to black people.
Yeah. I call them the blacks.
The blacks.
Hey, I got to get going because I got to go do a show at the thing here right here. But thanks for having me on.
It's been a blast. having
Thank
you
you.
here,
Where can
bud.
people find you and support your work?
SamTripoli.com, and you can see Doom Scrolling every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And I have a couple specials out. Just go to SamTripoli.com. I have four stand-up joke writing specials and 2 crowd work specials if you want to check it out. I just gotta get ready for Jake Shields' show.
Good, buddy.
I
Yeah,
had a
dude.
great time. I love these conversations.
Yeah,
It's like
absolutely,
so
brother.
deep, dude. It's
Yeah,
like
for sure. Yeah, everybody, the Underclass Podcast. That's all that matters, honestly.
Oh,
Support the
thank you.
Patreon
Thank
if
you
you
for
can.
being
My
here.
name's Austin Picard. I appreciate all of you, obviously.
And I'm Jose, Jose Galison. I got soft docs recently. If you want, you can learn my real name. It's a
soft
pseudonym.
dogs.
It's fun, whatever.
Welcome to soft dogs.
You can find me on the No Way Jose podcast. I'm on
Guys are the
YouTube, all the
best.
major odd bucketers Rumble as well. I do a daily show too, about a Monday through Friday, usually around 11 a.m. Eastern. I'll be in there, so you can join me and hang
You
out.
live stream?
I do live stream every Monday through Friday. Sometimes I'll pick up a shift, but yeah, follow me on Twitter at Tower Gang Jose. I don't know, maybe I'll change at some point. We'll see, or it might just be lazy. But yeah, those are places to find me. Josie.
I'm Josie. I'm the Redhead Libertarian. You can find me at TRHL Official over on X, and you can go to timcast.com and help support our work. I'll be on Timcast on June 30th to have a very big announcement.
Oh yeah.
So definitely tune into that.
Oh yeah, real quick, I forgot to mention, me and Austin both forgot to mention, we do a weekly show together on Tuesdays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. You're still here? I'm impressed. You must really enjoy the show, or you just like bullshit drama and you want to hear why I left Tower Gang. First off, thank you for your concern. As you can tell, I did not address it because Bohemian Grove was just yesterday, and I did not want to give any reason to damage their show. I wanted it to go well. But in the meantime of me being quiet, I have been besmirched. I have been smeared, slandered even, and it has not been fun. And to have it come from a lot of people that I thought were my friends really sucked. But if there's one thing I've learned about this world, that happens, and it happens too often, unfortunately. So anyways, I'm going to keep this very vague because, as you guys know, I'm very private. I tend not to talk about anything like this ever with you guys, because I just think it's like beneath what I'm attempting to do here. Like, I want to talk about big ideas and serious things, and this is just not that. But I'll try and relate it to, I don't know, a life lesson if I can, to make it not so pointless. But anyways, there was just a legitimate disagreement between me and one of my co-hosts on Tower Gang about how I guess you would say a business negotiation went with the theater that we were trying to do the event at. And I had moved over 300 miles to live here, live very close to the theater. And the reason I did that is because I was angling and I was in talks and trying to get a deal done with Rumble by which we could essentially compete with Kill Tony. I know that sounds totally delusional and crazy, but hey, I'm delusional and crazy. I'm trying to make a living as a libertarian. Like, not easy to do. So that was the idea, and me and the guys were on board with that. And because of a cancel mob that came from Owen Benjamin, the theater owner decided to renege on the deal that we had with them. And I was misled as to how that conversation went. And as a consequence of that, I did not intervene when I would have had I known how the conversation had gone. And as a consequence of that, we were essentially blacklisted. And one of my co-hosts then proceeded putting out phone numbers for the city council and the mayor and all these other people and the theater guy. And I still live here. And my intention was to try and grow something very special in this town. And it all fell apart very rapidly. And my disappointment with that essentially led to me telling him that I thought he handled that poorly. And he got very upset with me. And the biggest mistake I did was that, first off, I wasn't trying to make it a big deal. We were talking in the post show, a Patreon only, it was 30 viewers. And I tried to do it in a joking fashion. I was actually trying to basically get my point across, but do it in a way that will diffuse it. So I made some jokes in between, and the jokes did not land with him, and he got very upset. And I thought it was done. I was over it. And then 3 days later, maybe even 4 days later, I'm not sure how long, get a message, and it's basically an ultimatum that I have to apologize. And I was like, you've said way wilder shit to me. I don't know,
100 times and to the entire Tower Gang crew. So I said, I'm sorry for the tone and I'm sorry that it happened on the show, but I'm not sorry for the message. And that wasn't good enough. And I was like, all right, I'm out. I'm out. I can't do that. It seemed quite evident to me that there was like brewing resentment and some sort of like power struggle that was happening. And I don't really understand like the underlying reasons for that. But certainly what I had to say was not anything, or it wasn't beyond the pale. It wasn't so severe that it wasn't something that we could have gotten past, in my opinion, at least throughout the other 4 years that we had been doing the show. But for whatever reason, this was like a big deal. And as you can tell, I'm trying to keep this vague because I'm trying not to keep this thing going. I don't want it to have any more momentum. I want to move on with my life. Let me say, I loved those guys. I'll never feel bad about the times that I spent doing the shows with them and traveling and doing live events. And I'm really appreciative of the fan base, even the ones that have flipped against me for no fucking reason at all. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for laughing along with us. I think that it was just a great experience, and it allowed me to hold on to my youth a little bit longer, allowed me to joke about things. And I genuinely believe that there is something beautiful about just rejecting the woke worldview, rejecting the status quo, and just saying, I'm gonna, without any malice in my heart, I'm just going to say the most hateful shit. I'm just going to get it all out there. It was a great outlet for me to stay sane because covering geopolitics or just domestic politics or anything like that 24/7 is, you've got to just hang out with the boys sometimes. So for me, that's what it was. But the truth is, despite the fact that the audience is incredibly passionate, it was also very small. We were doing, I think, maybe 2,000 combined listeners and viewers after 4 years. It was not exactly crushing, but those that watched it or listened to it religiously, and they absolutely loved it, and I absolutely loved them. I'm not trying to downplay the importance of the show because it was small. I'm just saying it wasn't exactly thriving. And just to be clear, I've also given my approval, if it's needed, I don't think it is, for them to continue the show without me. And if they choose to do, I wish them well. And I hope that it happens. I hope that it stays alive if they want to do that. And I hope that all of them go on to be tremendous successes. For me, the thing that really and took it to a level of, all right, this is like bridge burned entirely, was when they took it public in such a terrible way. The fact that they take a post show that had been seen by 30 people and they put it out on a stream, which I don't know how many people watched, a couple hundred probably, but it was like there was already drama brewing. And then to forward it to Owen Benjamin, by which he then drags it publicly to his couple 100,000 followers. And it was like, oh, you guys are trying to destroy me. Like, you're trying to injure my public, whatever, persona. And that's just not anything I would ever do to them. And I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for the fact that I've been asked hundreds of times to explain what transpired. And I just think that's just not something I do. It's not something I would do, and it's not something I'm going to put up with. I think that we all have a line that you just can't come back from. And for me, that was the line that was crossed. And as I said, I'm not wishing them ill. It's just that I have to separate myself from people that would do something like that to me. It's wildly inappropriate, in my opinion, and not something that I want to be victim to any longer, to be honest, despite the fact that people did not know what transpired behind the scenes. And one of the other co-hosts has finally come out and said that everything I've said has at least been true, whether or not you agree with my assessment of things. Like, I'm not lying. And there has been overt lies said about me. I'm not going to go through the details because I just think I want this to fucking die. I want this to end. I want to move on, but I had to say something. So this is it. And this is the last thing you will hear from me about it. And as I said a dozen times already in this, I wish them well. And I hope that everybody goes on to crush at life. And I will always look back fondly on the good times and try and forget the bad times and the unbelievably vicious way with which this ended. But it's life. Shit like that happens sometimes. So I guess to tie it into a life lesson, make sure that there's always a semblance of mutual respect and that you're on the same page as to what those lines are, where they're drawn. And when you're doing a very aggressive comedy show where you're saying wild shit, it's sometimes you can step over those lines accidentally. But we really had done a good job of, despite the fact that we say vicious shit to each other on the show, there was always love behind it. And that love went away over the past couple weeks viciously towards me. And I'm shocked by it, honestly. But anyways, that's what happened. And I will really miss the fans, and I will really miss the good times and the laughs and the laughter. It was great. It's just sometimes all good things must come to an end. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. I don't think all the good things must come to an end, but in this case, it did. And it came to a bad end, a very bad end, and a very not fun end. And I just want to be very clear. I would have said nothing about this. When I said I was quitting, I said, I love you guys. I hope we can be friends in the future. I just can't do this. And I meant it. And then the next day, it went public, and then it went public again. And then every day thereafter, for about 10 days, the public bashing of me increased, culminating with Owen Benjamin trying to destroy me, saying he never liked me, even though he'd said many times that he did like me, and blah, blah, blah. It's just fucking crazy. It's crazy behavior. And despite the fact that this wasn't a foreign thing. I had seen shit like this happen from the crew before. It had always been directed externally. It had never been directed internally. And therefore, it's evident that I was no longer wanted. Good day. But I will say, Tower Gang doing a couple thousand viewers, listeners. This show is doing 20 to 30,000 viewers and listeners per episode. And I think that it just makes sense from a productivity standpoint that I focus my energy on doing more of this. And therefore, I will be. And I really appreciate those that have stuck with me through all the bullshit drama. And I hope you have a little bit better understanding of my perspective on these things. And I appreciate everybody that is watching, even though they hate me right now, just to hear my side of things. And that's it. That's where I'm at with it. So I'll end by saying thank you to everybody who has stuck with me for the 5 years I've been doing this show. It has been a bizarre endeavor. It has obviously been fruitful and tough at times and just very challenging and interesting. And I don't know, I'm living the dream in some ways. And it's also at times miserable, but I wouldn't change it. I really do enjoy what I'm doing. But moving up here and then having everything just get rug pulled was like, ugh, this sucks. But I'm still going to, as I usually do, try and make the best of this situation. I'm going to try and make the best content and improve this show as much as I can to offset the loss of creativity that I got to expend doing Tower Gang. Anyways, leave a comment down below if you disagree. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of hateful comments down below. Just hit the like button regardless, even if you're going to leave something mean. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.